sim races from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now! It's been a relentless start to the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series, and now on deck, the first of the Triple Crowns. 3 races that take on increased significance in the journey to become a Lionheart champion. First up, the unique Tricky Triangle, taking from legendary racetracks to create something unique, something that every driver wants to come out on top on. The 3-turn oval always produces close racing with these open-wheel rocket ships. Welcome to Pennsylvania, and welcome to the Next Level Racing Pocono 250, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted as always to be alongside with DJ Clark. Don't forget you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing. Let's head straight into our butt kicker pre-race show because, oh boy, are we excited about heading up to Pocono, because it's always fun racing. It's the site of the 7th closest finish in series history, and DJ, a little bit longer a race distance-wise. It's the first of the Triple Crowns. We know just how much these drivers want to come out on top here.
Very much so, Arjuna. When you look at the schedule at the beginning of the year, you circle Pocono, you circle Indy, and you circle Auto Club as the races you want to run. And I'm going to make a bold statement here that Pocono is the trickiest out of those 3 to get right. They don't call it the Tricky Triangle for nothing. As you said, 3 different corners modeled on Trenton, modeled on the Milwaukee Mile, and modeled on Indianapolis itself. Each corner presents its own difficulty to get around here. Multiple lines to take, close racing, and oh yeah, we'll probably throw in a 4, 5, maybe even 6 wide at a course on a restart.
Don't start putting those thoughts in the air this early on. Now, again, remember, the 3rd of the triple back-to-back weeks to kick off this season. Of course, we had a little break between Homestead and Watkins Glen. Get a week off after this, but then it's going to be a little bit relentless once again, not just heading over to Long Beach, then Motegi to kick off what is going to be a vital run through the summer. This is a 22-round schedule as we take a look at this Next Level Racing schedule, and it runs us, DJ, all the way into 2024.
Yeah,
I've avoided doing that all this year until just now.
Well, there's a first time for everything, Arjuna. But yeah, it's the first time that Lionheart has been able to run into the new year, so that's going to present a little bit of a different opportunity. Gateway and Auto Club, a short course, and a super speedway to close out the year. Always exciting to be able to see that, and well, Auto Club never fails to disappoint to put on a good race.
So let's talk about your Next Level Racing driver standings, where it's still very early on, a 4th race of the season, 4 different track types as well. It's Sean Campbell in that WMP racing car that sits on top, but Matt Taylor, Mike Rasmussen, and Michael O'Brien, all in the Nezumi Graphics LC crew, have rose their way in front of the team talent duo of Dan Zagers as well as Phil Kraus. Early doors, still very hard to say if there's any trends in the championship, but DJ, it's always an ominous sign when you see Sean Campbell at the top.
Yeah, it certainly is, and well, when he came into the series last year, we thought ovals may be a little bit of his Achilles heel, but he's certainly proved in a short time here in the Lionheart Retro Series that they are not, that he is just as good here on ovals as he is on a road course, so he's going to have a big target on his back here, I think, tonight.
Now, as we take a look at the HyperX team standings, important to note that it's Nezumi Graphics LC 1 and 2. It's the Madworks crew that currently lead, and not by an insignificant amount. Raven Lavoie Motorsports sitting in 3rd. then the 4D Raceware SRT, Backfire Team Talent, Unacceptable Racing. You see plenty of these strong team names as we work our way through what's going to be a close for Team Championship. Butt Kicker Rookie Championship, though, is going to be difficult because we thought maybe Phil Kraus would be definitely one to watch, the defending Lionheart Open Wheel Series champion, but with Sean Campbell looking so strong, Kraus having a bit of a rocky start to open things up, it's going to be a long slog for some of these drivers if they want to get up to that WMP racing car.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult, but I'd keep an eye there on Kraus and Zegers as well. Both of those drivers could be able to move their way up through the order. It's just going to take a little bit of luck. As you said, it's been 4 different styles of tracks that we've been to thus far in the course of the season. Everything changing around a little bit here, and so you've just got to spy a little bit of a hole in the armor there of Sean Campbell, and rest assured, drivers like Kraus are going to absolutely pounce on that.
We'll talk very quickly about your Gomez Sim Industry Series details as we head over into Season 7 in this Lionheart Retro Series, the 10th year of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're campaigning a car that was designed to go left and right with ground effect. This Lotus 79 broke onto Formula 1 scenes and shocked it all, but we show that it can be pretty quick going in lefts as well and always puts on a fun and entertaining battle. Custom fix setup built by the Majors Garage as they all fight for their share of cash and prizes, totting up to $3,600. All that they have in terms of driver aids are their 2 hands and their 2 feet. Triple Crowns, we've already said how important those are going to be, but of note, those are not double point races. They pay out the same as the rest of the races. Everyone else, though, still wants to come out on top here, believe me. Defending series champion is Mike Rasmussen, and of course, defending team champion now with the Nizumi Graphics LC backing on them. Mad work still in the very top of the HyperX Team Championship. Arena event details as we head to a race that everyone will want to win, the first of these Triple Crowns. But qualifying, who cares? Because yes, back in Season 1 of the Lionheart Retro Series, the winner came from pole position, but after that, it's been from outside the top 10, from as deep as 27th position, and that's partly because we average a caution count of about 8. We've had only as low as about 6 on a couple of occasions, and this race has never finished under caution. The closest a margin to victory, DJ, I said this earlier, 7th closest in series history, 1/100th of a second.
Yeah, that's absolutely remarkable and really goes to show you just how tight of a series this is, that is the 7th closest finish we've ever had. Average margin of victory around here, though, only 1/10 of a second, and that is especially incredible considering the fact that we've never had a race finish under yellow, so that is all natural closeness.
But we were talking about this just before we went live. Last year when Jim Herrick came out on top, 4/10 the margin at the line, partially because fuel mileage came into play. You said it earlier, DJ, 3 very unique corners. What turn 4? You only need 3 to put on a show.
Yeah, you do indeed. Pretty high banks when you come into turn 1. Multiple lines that you can take through there. Pretty high. You can go pretty high. You can go pretty low. You've just got to feel it out a little bit. Then coming into the tunnel turn, turn 2. That's a relatively flat one. It's kind of intermediate based off of Indianapolis as you run through that 90-degree left-hander. Pretty much one lane through there, although off of restarts, we may see a couple of drivers trying to work onto the outside, but if that happens, you've got to back off and feather the throttle a little bit. Then the final corner, turn 3. Modeled after the Milwaukee Mile, almost completely flat. You've got to really arc the corner around in Arjuna. That's where these drivers are going to feel the most aero wash coming from these cars as the front wings just scramble for grip.
And you said high banks at turn 1, 14 degrees to 8 degrees to 6 degrees. It gets progressively lower banking as you work around the course of the lap. Practice underway right now as we get set to go off into qualifying, where drivers will get the track to themselves and the opportunity for 2 flying laps. We do always wonder, is it lap 1, is it lap 2 that's going to be the quickest? Check out a couple of the drivers working through. Dan Zager's 2nd quickest in practice, and someone that really kicked off the season and is running Lionheart competition on the podium in fine form. Team talent, though, as a whole, 3 very strong drivers, Zager's Andrew Wood, a Lionheart Speedway Series champion, winner rather, and Phil Kraus, not clicking in terms of getting all 3 drivers to finish up towards the front in a race yet.
Yeah, going to be interesting. Maybe a little bit of a chance of redemption for them here today. But it's not just about running fast around here, Arjuna. You've also got to calculate fuel strategy. Looking at about 29, 30 laps under green flag conditions that these drivers are going to have to pop on into pit lane. That means if we've got a completely green race, you're going to need to either do some mega fuel saving and try to be able to stretch out 2 more laps or so per stint, or you're going to have to come in near the end for a splash and dash. And that means, much as like we saw last year, we could see an economy run make what works on top, as it was Jim Herrick last year that proved that out to perfection.
Yes, but we've never had fewer than 6 cautions, so we're not likely to go caution-free. And DJ, what did you say about the tunnel turn? You're more liable to go side-by-side through turn 2 on restart. Cautions, breed cautions here at Pocono, as practice will come to an end.
Yes, cautions will breed cautions around here, and look for the couple of areas that I think we're really going to see some danger zones for cautions. Drivers getting tangled going through the tunnel turn. That's where we're most likely to see a little bit of car-to-car contact that creates an incident. Then coming through turn 3, watch for drivers to just understeer a little bit, coming out of the corner, getting onto the throttle a little bit too early, getting a little bit greedy, washing out into that outside barrier and coming across the track and collecting a few that way.
So as qualifying begins, I will just reiterate, it's not necessarily that important. Only one driver is not going to head out in qualifying. That is Bruno Miranda. Something else that I'm always curious to see what different people think about, DJ, is the fact that we are at Legacy Pocono. That means a little bit more bumpy, a little bit more rough and tumble, maybe some would say. What does that do in these Lotus 79s for the racing?
Well, what it means is you're not going to have nearly as strong of a grip with the ground effects on the car, because the car is going to be bouncing a little bit. And even though these cars have side skirts to try to make the suction underneath the car as strong as possible, when you have those changes in track surface, that's going to affect you a little bit. So you've got to be cognizant of that, of sudden moments where you can just lose a little bit of those Venturi tunnels underneath the car. The other thing is you've just got to make sure that you're as smooth as can be and you don't let those bumps cause you to overcompensate. The rear end of the car will want to step out on you here a little bit if you're not careful with it, so you've got to be careful about it. But Arjuna, I like running the Legacy version here with the Legacy cars. It just kind of feels right.
I knew you were about to say that, because it does feel right at the end of the day. Now, Joe Hassert was fastest in practice. He's going to be one of the first to come across the line, along with Gabe Wood in the 04 and Drew White in the 15. Long lap, so we'll get plenty of time to see the drivers in, and I think plenty trying to wait for maybe some cloud cover, cooler track conditions, and hoping for a little bit of a benefit. There comes Hassert to the line, though, and he's going to set a 48.690 as the first lap time. Immediately, we see Drew White and Drew White and Gabe Wood slide in behind. Lap 1 or lap 2, which one do you think is the quickest, seeing that Sean Campbell and Chris Reagan have very much backed off on their initial laps?
Well, I think it's going to be lap 2, but it's not for the reason that you normally think, Arjuna. When we talk about lap 2 normally being fast around intermediate speedways or even super speedways, it's because you've got to give a little bit of time for the speed to build up and the momentum to go. But that's not the case here at Pocono, because you've got to lift out of the corner and, dare I say, brake a little bit potentially coming down through turn 3. You're kind of setting yourself up equally. I think lap 2 is going to be quick here because there's just going to be less fuel in the car. These cars are going to be lighter. They're going to be dancier, they're going to be looser, and that all equates to better speed.
Dancier does sound a little bit dangerous. I like it. Gabe Wood within 200ths of Chris Fowler, who we watch on the top. Tyler Graf within 2,000ths of the fellow Nezumi Graphics LC car, but currently still the cursed number 20 on top. Sean Campbell is going to only be able to jump up to a 48.659. Michael O'Brien, who's really shown some decent turn of speed, provisionally went to pole. Phil Kraus now has it, though. Fowler unable to improve on lap number 2.
All right, proving me a little bit wrong there as we see Kraus coming across the line and coming to a rest there. A great time with that 48.562. Going to be about 0.06 of a second ahead of Luke Daniels, who now slots his way up into P2. Zager's there as well, going to find himself in P3. We watched David Rodriguez. We talked about this may be a little bit of an economy run. Well, there's nobody better in this series at running an eco run than the number 10.
You're thinking Iowa, where the magic fuel saving a tree was growing in the Lotus 79 of Rodriguez. He'll be up in 8th, and that's crucial for him to be relatively close. And he has set the identical lap time to Rodrigo Munoz. The margins here, a 1/10 splitting 23 machines. Here's Jim Herrick, by the way, starting lap number 2, our defending race winner, down in 23rd. Based on the trends of qualifying well doesn't always mean race victories here. It's looking good for Herrick. Back off here.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to be farther up in the field, and everybody does, and it's not because it's going to get you a better chance to win. It's the same thing when we talk about running at a Daytona or a Talladega, super speedway racing in stock cars. You want to be farther up the field because there are less drivers in front of you, and you are more likely to be able to avoid an incident if you are farther up in the field.
These margins are just incredible. Sirwa now up to 2nd. 5,000ths off the pace of Phil Krause, 1,000 further back to Luke Daniels. Incredible. For Jim Herrick, it's a 48.663. It's only 25th for our defending race winner, who has plenty of time to work his way up through the field. Ken Hacker crosses the line after being down in 32nd initially, improves up to 11th, so that's a nice jump up from him. And while we have 2 Team Talent cars up inside of the top 5, Andrew Wood finds himself down in 31st position as qualifying draws to a close.
Yeah, it's not going to be the best run there for Wood, but keep an eye for him to maybe move his way up through the field. Also keep an eye there on Big Joe Hassert, starting off in 29th position, a oval expert. He may be one to watch out here today.
Well, we roll off of the short track into a very different sort of an experience. We're ready to rumble for the first Triple Crown of the season. Let's run you down through your butt kicker starting grid. And so it's Phil Krause looking to return back to his winning ways. That is going to grab the pole position here in the Pocono Mountains. It's the first pole position of the season for Phil Krause. He's got David Sirwa alongside with Luke Daniels and Dan Zagers on row number 2. It's all Madworks and Azumi on row 3 with Michael O'Brien inside of Chris Fowler, while back in 7th spot we see Tyler Graf inside of his Nazumi Graphics LC teammate of David Rodriguez. Rodrigo Munoz qualifies well up in 9th. The series organizer George Anzaldo alongside to complete the top 10. Ken Hacker, Gabe Wood share row number 6. Unlucky 13, well, hopefully not for Mark Cohn, who's been close to winning all 3 Triple Crowns in a season after winning the first 2 and then missing the final race. Matt Taylor alongside, while Alex Guillon, Matt Wagner, Forsyth and Valenzuela roll 15th through 18th positions, bookending your top 20. It's Luis Gonzalez Nunez, only 1,000th off of Christopher alongside Christopher Hill, Sam Ryman 21st and 22nd positions, while Samuel Fontaine and Mike Rasmus, the defending series champion, back in 24th. We'll see how his charge goes, along with the likes of Sean Campbell and Jim Herrick, our points leader, our defending race winner. 1/10 splits the top 26 with Reagan, White, Hassert and Harden through your top 30. A big stacked field of Lotus 79s and 4 more with times on the board in the form of Andrew Wood, Hugo Gallus, Paul Jenkins and then Jeff Hysong. Mike Rigney and then Richie Hearn will be the first 2 cars with no time on the board and electing to try and just stay out of a little bit of trouble in what is a 36 car field of Lotus 79s. They're getting stacked up and ready to roll on the main straightaway for the 100-lap race here today. And so as they get ready to rumble, let's run you down through our featured onboard cameras here today. First up, we're going to jump on board with the 00 of Mike Rigney. He'll have some fun working his way through the pack, and he rides with Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipments and controls. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
The second onboard camera is going to be on board with Jim Herrick and the number 40 Next Level Racing onboard camera. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com.
George Anzaldo hopes to stay out of trouble. He rides with Arena, a new streaming experience for esports. Come and get involved and make a difference on arena.tv.
And finally, the number 99 of David Sirwa, Caro, the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
I like what I've just seen in our RaceSpotTV YouTube chat by Brian Greenlee. Joe Hassert is his bet for the butt kicker long shot of the night. Now, that's not something that we've ever done before, but DJ, I like it. Who do you think is your butt kicker long shot of the night?
Well, he kind of stole mine. I was saying that
you did
Big
say
Joe
it already.
I did say it already, but I'll pick another one. We'll let you keep that one, Brian. I'm going to keep my eye here on Sean Campbell. He starts back in 25th position. I don't know if we can count that as a long shot, but he may be one that's able to work his way up through the field. If we want a little bit more of an unorthodox pick, I'm going to go with Richie Hearn. 34th right now, starting near the back of the field. Richie knows how to drive this place. He's obviously a very experienced driver, both in the real world and in the sim. And I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the Elite West Racing team, so I'm going to pick that number 70.
It is always good seeing Richie Hearn in the field. I hope his internet holds up here today. How many cautions? Over, under? We've never had fewer than 6. How are you feeling? What's in the air?
I'm going to put the over-under line at 7.5. This car tends to be a little bit tight off of the drop of the green flag when it's heavy on fuel. It gets a little dartier as the race goes along, but I think we're going to see some drivers struggle with understeer here tonight, particularly coming out of 1 and coming out of 3.
Sam Ryman, I think, is starting from pit lane. He's a bit worried about this race start, but competition, commitment, excitement. We're ready to rumble for a Triple Crown. We're underway for the Next Level Racing Pocono 250 presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Already a bit darty through the field, but off of 14 degrees of banking, we survive turn number 1 and now funnel into the tunnel turn. Who's brave enough to go side by side? Michael O'Brien wants to climb his way up to second, and he'll be able to do so in that Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks machine. Side by side, though, a common denominator through the rest of the field as we come to turn 3 to the end of lap number 1.
That was a very, very gutsy move by O'Brien. He clearly has his sights set on winning this race. Let's see if everybody's able to keep this clean. Coming out of turn 3, that's going to be one of those big understeer moments that we talked about. Everybody through and we're across the line.
1 green flag lap in the book. That is a great sign to see, and now hopefully the nerves start to settle. We've talked about how bumpy this surface is going to be, and that means a white knuckle ride for the drivers, especially knowing what they're going to be thinking about when it comes to tires. We'll dive into that a little bit more over the course of the race. 100 laps on the board as well. DJ, you mentioned this lap fuel window about 31 to 32 laps, so hypothetically if we did go green, there is a little bit of fuel saving involved.
Yeah, there's a little bit there, and depending on when those cautions come out, that's also going to affect the fuel strategy, so you've got to be careful about that. Want to give some credit here, some big movers up through the field early on. Sean Campbell up 10 positions in a lap and a half. Reagan up 8, Asser up 5.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting races where, given the length of it as well in terms of the lap count and the distance that we're going to go, I expect the drivers to be a little bit more reserved for some of them, while Sean Campbell, being reserved for him, is like easy picking his way through the field. Imagine what it would be like if he was actually pushing the tempo. He does tend to always like to get stuck up at the front, and coming off the Lionheart Sports Car Series race, Butt Kicker Sports Car Series race earlier this week, it's been a relentless period of time for these drivers, and look at how they're still racing on this start. I mean, you talk about the big movers and shakers, but at the end of the day, you get nervous when you see them still side by side this far through the field coming to the end of lap 3.
Yeah, you really and truly do, particularly if you're coming here out of turn 3. You see those drivers that are going to be pushing up on that outside line. Oh, a couple of drivers far back in the field coming within a couple of inches there of that outside retaining barrier. And I can tell you from personal experience, Arjuna, if you get a car that makes contact with that outside wall and spears across the track, there was almost nothing you can do. That's how my Pocono ended 2 years ago.
I don't think I've ever actually finished a race here at Pocono, DJ, unfortunately, so I commiserate with you. Rodrigo Munoz, after qualifying well up through the field, on the outside into the tunnel turn because he's got Mark Cohn in that Pink Panther machine trying to stalk his way up a 3rd position, and now trying to take advantage as well. Here comes Sean Campbell to join the party inside of Matt Taylor into turn 3.
Yeah, and he's going to take the inside line here. That's going to compromise him a little bit off of the exit, but you're not able to roll nearly as much momentum as you want to. Munoz is going to be able to hold that at bay, and now it looks like Matt Taylor may even be able to challenge here a little bit on Campbell as they come down the start-finish straight.
It's not just back in the field where there's some action. In front, Tyler Graf, Chris Fowler into 1, and they're going to duke it out. Excuse me, Dan Zagers and Tyler Graf in towards turn number 1. Zagers, the Team Talent car, of course, that runs now in 4th position, with Graf up 2 spots behind as well. There's Zagers now trying to latch onto the draft of Luke Daniels, who's really struggling to hold on to Phil Krause and Michael O'Brien, and in through turn 2, wide for Daniels, and the field swarms him.
Yeah, absolutely swarmed there at that point, and I think for Daniels, he's just not feeling confident in the car here. This thing will hold nearly flat out around the circuit. You just have to trust it, and that is a very, very difficult thing to do, specifically when you're coming in the dirty air. You've got to know how it's going to respond and really turn in on the corners. As we watch on board with Luke, he's going to have a little bit of a look down to the inside here of Sirois. That's a gutsy move to be able to do, holding it down to the inside line. Sirois going to run it up high, though, and be able to hold that position. Daniels, I think, just finding his opportune line here at this point.
And now, because of his attempted move into turn one, here comes David Rodriguez up the inside, and there's not much that Luke Daniels can do. He's going to try and send it out wide as they go. About 2 wide, 2 rows deep. Mark Cohn up past George Anzaldo as well. There is plenty of action. Just love what we love to see, but it also means that we can't get too excited, DJ, because if they're racing this much in the early portions of the race, we know that the tires get quicker the older they get. And so that means when we get to the end of the race, when they're even more aggressive, even more feisty, they'll be even looser.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think for a lot of these drivers here, the more experienced drivers, they tried to make those spots up off of the restart. Now look for them to settle in a little bit and wait for those tires to get a little bit grippier and wait for the fuel load to get a little bit lighter to be able to put their way around.
A couple of cars not getting the best runs out of turn one, and it does seem the high banking there and the multitude of lines that can be run are setting up these potential moves into turn two. Rodrigo Munoz in that Backfire Motorsports car going to be under fire from Sean Campbell, who will try and get up the inside once again and up into the top 10. He'll be able to slide up through as well, and that's the crucial thing. If you're able to clear, run yourself around that wider line, maintain a little bit more speed and try and cover off any sort of a move. Interesting, at least in my opinion, that Michael O'Brien hasn't decided he wants to go for a move just yet, and I think he's thinking fuel games right now, which is somewhat surprising because I don't think we're going to get to a fuel window without a yellow flag. And the other thing I'll say, DJ, is if we do, pit road entry here is always not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not, and it's kind of deceptive. It looks like it's a pretty standard entry, like you're coming in off in Indianapolis, but my goodness gracious, it is very, very quick and very difficult to be able to get everything slowed down. So I don't know how he's going to be able to handle this here at this point, but let's see what he does. Everybody just holding in line as we ride on board with the nose.
I do wonder if swap drafting might be effective here, but I think he is very focused on fuel mileage, and that's kind of where my line of questioning is going. David Sirois back up the inside of Chris Fowler as Sirois trying to recover some of those positions he lost on the start. I love the story of David Sirois as well. Someone that came into the series, we expected him to be fast on the road courses with his experience in this car, but then ended up becoming a real contender on the ovals, has had plenty of pole positions, most of them coming on ovals, 38 race starts, 39 today, 8 pole positions.
That's a pretty good batting average, and I think here for Sirois, he has impressed me, and this is a track in particular that I think he's going to really excel on. Because it's so long, because there are different corners around here, Pocono's often described, whoa, as you've got one car getting very squirrely off the line. Yeah,
and that's going to be 3 wide, isn't it? As Reagan in the 19 will try and pop on alongside of Mike Razmas. He's got the 08 of Alex Guyon for company, Luis Gonzalez Nunez in the mix as well. And the heart of the pack is really where they are fighting the hardest, even though the train is really not getting broken up too much. Yes, Kraus and O'Brien are 1 second clear of Zegers. Zegers, though, I think will try and link up with Kraus, the team talent duo, and try and do something about Michael O'Brien. Just look at this, though, back in 20th, 21st, about there.
Yeah, and this is just drivers that are eager. They want to try to prove their worth here. They don't want to get themselves caught a lap down, and I'm not sure it's the right strategy at this point. I think you need to be a little bit calmer here, maybe play a little bit of leapfrog, as you said, maybe even try to just see what you're able to do in conjunction with another, but I'm going to tell you what, that going 3 wide into turn 1, that's going to do you no favors.
Yeah, and I think Chris Reagan said, no thank you, please. You guys can fight this one out. Luis Gonzalez Nunez will swoop around the outside of Alex Guyon. Look behind them as well. I believe that is Cristobal Valenzuela that's looking pretty feisty as well. Mentioned it earlier. It is 1 second the margin between Zegers and O'Brien. But if I'm in the pit box of Team Talent, if I'm calling strategy, I'm telling Phil, yo, link up with your teammate behind if you can, because then you'll be in a lot more comfortable a position.
Yeah, that's the same strategy that I would be employing here at this point, but you tell a driver who's out into the lead of a race here, particularly a Triple Crown race like we've got at Pocono, to back off a little bit. Better yet, tell water not to be wet. It's not going to work out for you.
I do wonder who is the bold strategists that have to make those calls, but it's why it's always so interesting listening to some of those people on the radio, how they manage the drivers who are, at the end of the day, very inflamed because they are wheeling cars at high speeds, both in the real and virtual worlds at the end of the day, unfortunately. Our egos are big in sim racing, including ours, and sometimes we get heated and we like to race, but that's what sim racing is meant to be about, is going out and enjoying plenty of racing. Matt Taylor, Luke Daniels now battling for 11th and 12th positions. Daniels falling like a rock.
Yeah, again, just not having confidence in the car here at this point. Ooh, somebody making contact with the outside wall there coming off of turn 3. I saw a little bit of a kick up of some dirt. Daniels he's not looking comfortable. I wonder if he's going to maybe come alive a little bit more as this car burns off some fuel and it gets a little bit looser. Right now, it just doesn't look like he's got it together.
You can see that it is starting to stretch out just a little bit more now. Sam Ryman, after starting in pit lane, is only 2 seconds off of the back of the next car in line, and so he might get some drafts as well. All of this fighting, great to watch, not conducive to the quickest lap times, and 15th on back are about half a second slower per lap than Phil Krause at the front of the field. I think that's all you really need to know.
Yeah, very much so. All this battling is doing nothing but slowing down these drivers, and this is all well and good if you're trying to fight here for a top 10, trying to fight for a top 15. But this early on in the race, this thing's wide open, Arjuna. You can fight for the win here if you're lucky.
We've gone green for 13 laps as I knock on my desk. It's been pretty good so far. Even with all of this ducking and diving, they've left each other plenty of room, and I've been particularly impressed through turn 2, where we're coming up to now, just how wide they've elected to run on occasion.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to see those lines that the drivers are taking there at that point. But you're seeing there as they come out of the corners right now, that momentum up on the high side a little bit, what they're able to do with it. That's some pretty impressive running to see them be able to do that. Again here through turn 3, I'm very, very impressed. Drivers taking these cars on some alternate lines and really making it work.
George Anzaldo has gone from 10th to 16th, further back in the pack. Matt Taylor now finds himself adrift of Rodrigo Munoz by almost 2 full seconds. Forsyth in the very distinctive new paint scheme that he has for this season. We were touching on that one last time out at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Now we're, of course, in throwback week, at least in stock car racing, as, of course, the NASCAR suite of competitions head their way on over to Darlington. We are in retro cars, so I am throwing down the law here, DJ, as the commentator. I want you to agree with me on this if you're alongside. We need a throwback week, and we're going to make sure it collaborates with one of our interesting races that we've got coming up.
Oh, I think that's absolutely incredible. I know, Arjuna, when I ran here in the Retro Series 2 years ago, I did my own little retro throwbacks for each of the Triple Crowns. I was lucky enough to be able to run a Danny Sullivan, a Gordon Johncock, and I believe a Rick Mears tribute. No,
nice.
It's an Alonso Jr. tribute.
Okay.
Excuse me. Each of the years. That was my little tip of the hat. Put my sponsors on the car. Made it look really cool. I'd love to see the drivers be able to do that. Maybe at a classic racing venue that we're going to head to later in this season.
I'm trying to think what would make sense as Mike Razmas tries to find a way on past Forsyth. Took a look into turn 2. We'll try and swoop through on turn 3. And maybe Milwaukee. That seems like a pretty good one.
That's kind of what I was thinking as well. The mile has that sort of old school feeling to it, both in the way you drive it and the way everything's laid out, and just the history that's there. So, George, the rest of the series organizers, the gauntlet's been thrown.
Mosport,
Milwaukee,
maybe.
Let's see some. Ooh, I could do that one too.
We've got some Phoenix. Like, I was looking through it, I was like, you know what? We could basically do throwbacks every week. Would Richie Hearn throw back to a paint scheme of Richie Hearn's?
I mean, I kind of hope he would. That'd be perfect.
I would hope so as well. We head off to Long Beach in 2 weeks' time, a race that we always enjoy seeing Richie usually run quite well, taking that experience of being in the car in the real world to a sense of survival in the virtual world, which is very important on the streets of the West Coast. Now, unfortunately, DJ, that is the week of the certain race in Indianapolis, and so both you and myself are going to miss that one.
I may be able to set it up for my mother's apartment or my mother's house and see if I can do it there. But yeah, you and I will both be at the race that shall not be mentioned this year, and both looking forward to it, and hopefully be able to see a Sunday morning again.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm also looking forward to June 29th because I should be free for our second Triple Crown of the season when we make our way over to Speedway, Indiana.
There is no other place like running that 2.5 miles in the world, and I'll tell you what, these cars, they may not have ever run at Indianapolis proper, but I'll tell you what, they are relatively similar to the Chaparral that dominated back there in the 70s and 80s, and so we can make a one-to-one analogy there, and it's always good to see cars like that back around the Speedway.
I like as well that it just races well. We don't, at the end of the day, we always get a show. And sometimes the ovals are better than some of the road courses that we get because of the draft lock and whatnot, so I'm not complaining. Look at those team logos on the left side of your screen, by the way, because you see Team Talent running 1 and 3, as that's a big dart off of the wall for Chris Stouffer as he tries to get alongside potentially with one of the Raven LeVar Motorsports cars. That's George and Zaldo. But you've got so many of the Nizumi Graphics LC cars up there in the mix that I think this is going to really end up being a storyline this season because all of Tyler Graf, Chris Fowler, David Rodriguez, Mark Cohn, Matt Taylor, and Mike Rasmussen are serious contenders on their own day, and when they can work together, that's strength in numbers.
Well, it's like what we talked about last time out at New Hampshire when we were talking about the championship. You just have more bullets in the gun, so you've got better chances to be able to take advantage of everything. When you've got a big, big team like that, it's not just the fact that you're able to work together out on the track and be able to use each other to sort of draft back and forth. There's the other added benefit of if you're coming into a situation where there's a questionable pit stop strategy, you can send a couple drivers on that alternate strategy, say, all right, you take the stop now, you stay out, roll the dice, and one of you will be in the good position.
I always don't like having to do that, though, because when someone gets the short end of the stick, it's always uncomfortable. Front of the field, it's getting comfortably close. And because we like it being close, this is why Michael O'Brien saved his fuel at the start. And I can already hear him watching this broadcast back afterwards saying, Juna didn't know what he was talking about. Caution-free for the first 20 laps is pretty good. We're only about 10 laps away from diving into a pit stop window. You do not go a full lap down here when you pit, which means we're not talking about a danger zone. We're just talking about strategy calls.
Exactly, and let's also remember the fact that if you are able to save a little bit, even if it's not going to gain you a lap necessarily, when you're talking about running here, if you're able to just save maybe a quarter of a lap of fuel when you dive on into pit lane, that's a quarter of a lap of fuel less that you have to put into the car. So saving fuel, whether it gains you laps or whether it gains you time in the pit stops, it's going to pay you out one way or the other.
I just love them. Side of the cars working off of turn 1, the most banked corner on the track. You get the sense of load that they are putting into these tires. We mentioned on occasion this season bias ply tires. They were designed to go full race distances, Grand Prix race distances in the real world. We are going to require a tire stop this race. Most drivers will only take 1 or 3 tires. They'll usually ignore one corner of the car for better or worse. What that does mean though, DJ, is that because the tires get quicker the longer they're used, we're likely to see the tire swaps in this first cycle of the race. And like I was mentioning earlier, the longer we get and the closer we get to the end, the slipperier the cars will be. Yes, they're faster when they're older. They're looser when they're older too.
Yes, they are, and that's the big catch-22 that comes with that speed. And obviously, as you said, the tire changes here at this point when this car was made, not originally done, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Arjuna, I believe it was the Brabham Formula One team in the mid-'80s that were the first to really figure out how to make tire stops work. And so that's part of the reason that we started to see that, and that obviously being after this car was put out and developed. So right on board with Tyler Graf, about a, let's call it a 9-car breakaway up at the front of the field. All these drivers being very, very patient.
Yeah, even further back you've got, in this queue I mean, guess who's joined the fun? It's Sean Campbell in the WMP racing car, plus 16 positions. It was in our arena event details. Qualifying, who cares?
Exactly. Campbell doing the right thing there, and that shows me utter faith in the car. Did you see that line coming out of turn one? He truly just let that car drift out to the outside retaining barrier, let it go all the way out there, and didn't jerk the wheel back over. He knew the limits. He knew where it was going to go. As we see another poke out there, Zegers now going for the move into the tunnel turn.
And this is where if Team Talent can get 1 and 2, you wonder how it's going to fare out into the pit stop window. Zegers now may be compromised though as he gets pinched on exit. Will have to get back into the draft and try and tow his way in towards turn 1, and he's going to go right back on offense. Phil Kraus not actually aiding him on corner entry. This is where it's helpful to have that high banks though, because while Zegers can run down low, O'Brien will run a little bit higher, maintain a higher average corner speed, and holds on to second.
Yeah, he'll hold on to second there, and I think Zegers doing the right thing, popping back into line here at this point. He's going to fade a little bit like he wants to go too wide down into the tunnel turn, but he's not going to go for it. Opting to stay in line there. You see a little bit of alternate lines coming out of the corner as now they concertina back up together. It looks like there Zegers is going to back off coming down through turn 3. Didn't like the look he got.
So I'm going to pose something to you, DJ. It looked easy to pass further back in the field. It looks a lot more difficult further up front. Is this just tire related, or is this something about having more clean air on the nose of the car?
It's a little of column A and a little of column B. Mainly, it is just having more of that clean air on the car that you're able to position it a little better going through the corners. You're able to really figure it out. That's why you saw here, watch coming through the tunnel turn. This is going to be a prime example of exactly what I'm talking about. They're going to take very slightly opposite lines.
Sorry. Gabe Wood and Ken Hacker have been escorted directly to the medical center after a hellacious scene off of turn number 1. The advantage of the immediate transportal to the medical center, though, means we stay green and caution-free.
My goodness gracious, having a look at that replay myself here right now. That was something. Woo.
Yeah, yeah. A picture says 1,000 words, a video therefore says a lot more. What more do you need to see?
Oh, yeah, that's right up into the trees. And now obviously that is lined with catch fencing, but running the retro version here, it clearly is not. Oh man, that was internet problems, I think, on top of just some absolute tomfoolery when it comes to the sim. Wow.
I mean, the tomfoolery benefits us. Let's not complain because we stay caught. It could have actually been a lot worse if they had not been immediately escorted off the track.
Oh, very much so. That would be, frankly, the big one that we worry about at the high-speed oval such as this.
Here's a look from up above as Campbell, Rodriguez trying to work their way on forward now with Kraus and Zegers established 1 and 2. Heading into the pit stop window, though. We had a full pacing lap as well. It's a lengthy pacing lap. You're going to burn up a little bit more fuel there as well. So even getting to lap 32 is going to be a bit of a stretch. I'm worried for Phil Kraus, who has led for 27 laps and counting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised here, Arjuna, if we see him down within the next 2 laps or so. I think that's where his fuel is going to absolutely run out. Drivers like Zegers, drivers like O'Brien, Rob, Fowler, those drivers that were able to save a little bit more, be able to sip a little bit more, they may be able to stretch this a little bit longer. There's a little bit of action going on here up for that P2 position.
I think right at the end of the run, now that Zegers is up at the front as well, they've allowed Kraus to at least get into the tow for a lap so that maybe he can get to the end of lap 32, because if he can't get there, he's a sitting duck to the end of this race. 34 laps is going to be a stretch. It's 2.5 miles, and most of the lap is at least 80% throttle.
Yeah, exactly. You're able to go flat out here through the tunnel turn. You've got to be doing a little bit of lifting into 1 and into 3 potentially. If you're in the lead and you've got a really good car underneath you, you can go flat out through 1 if you get it just right. But, yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to save fuel if you're not out behind another car. And as indeed, we've got one of our first takers. That's going to be our defending champion, Jim Herrick, coming down in.
Defending race winner. I made that mistake earlier as well with Andrew Wood. But yes, Jim Herrick rolls, and like we said earlier, even though he was well back in the field, he will stay on the lead lap and would cycle to the front if a caution was to fly this early, rather this point in the race. We've gotten through 29 laps and counting. I'm still trying the commentator's curse, but apparently it's not working out, so I'll need to get on the blower to the RaceSpotTV tech support and find out why the caution button is not working. It might work a little bit further back in the pack, though. Christopher Hill has Drew White trying to get up his inside.
Yeah, trying to see what he's able to do here, as the battle's clearly not going away anyone at this point. So here they go. Whoa, 3 wide.
That was a bucking bronco if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, very much so, as I would not be one to do this at this point in the race. Here they go down into the corner. Little bit of looseness there coming off 3, but they're able to keep it together.
They're fighting hard, though, because I think they want track position heading into the pit stop cycle. Even if at this point you've saved enough fuel, you can still find some benefit by leapfrogging up a little bit more, just so that you're getting the net gain once we finish through what's going to be a tense cycle, I'm sure, for all, especially given that the pack is well and truly splintered up. You've got Zagers that leads out of the tunnel turn. A little check up behind as opportunity presented for Sean Campbell to lodge his way up into the top 5. Then the 09 of Rodrigo Munoz. No man's land, completely by themselves, and on lap 31 the caution flies for the first time today. It's George Anzaldo and Luke Daniels, 2 of the cars involved, who qualified well and now down outside of the top 10.
And that's going to put them down in the order here at this point. And of course, going to be a rough run for them, but this is going to be perfect when it comes to the pit stop cycle. Is pretty much everybody, with the exception of Herrick, is going to be able to come on into the pits without having to waste a green flag stop.
In the case of Herrick, though, should still cycle towards the front. Here's the look at the replay. Second incident, though, in this heart of the pack, though, and Anzaldo gets tagged from behind. Couldn't pick up who it was, and then that was not Luke Daniels that went up into the catch fencing. But somehow, whoever it was, landed on all 4 wheels.
Yeah, very lucky to be able to have that happen to him. Let's take another look at this coming down into the corner. There you see a little bit of a drift up, a little bit of a check, and then Reagan was the one behind that just absolutely nowhere to go.
Reagan's the one that hit Anzaldo, excuse me. Yeah. I still can't figure out who it was that went up into the air. Might have been one of the unacceptable racing cars, but slow things down and get ready for the pit crews to go to work. And importantly, we're going to probably restart around lap 34, DJ, right? Somewhere around there. So we haven't really gotten out of the woods if we went green from here to the end in terms of fuel mileage.
No, we haven't. You've got to stretch it out a little bit more. So there's still going to be questions here for these drivers, although what this is going to do is it will equalize the field. Everybody is going to come on in here at this point. Herrick may be able to stay out and make this work. We'll have to see.
He could come in and take a short stop, though, and probably still work his way a little bit further forward in the field. We'll see how the race-off pit exit goes, though. Can see Gabe Wood and George Anzaldo parked at not great angles, unfortunately, and indicating that we might not see them for the rest of the race. Up on the jacks they go. Remember, might be 1 tire, might be 3. Who's going to be bravest of them all? Sean Campbell with a short stop, I think, is already off and away. Zagers will win, though, the race off of pit lane. O'Brien second, Kraus third. It's Sean Campbell that's net 4th position. Tyler Graf, Mike Razmas, David Sirwa behind them. Everyone, I think, basically took tires in this first pit stop of the race.
Yeah, I think they did as well, and it's probably a good call for them to do it here at this point. Might as well do it under yellow. Do it here where you're not going to be losing time out on the track, as it will just add a little bit more to the pit stop.
After 30-plus laps without really a break, Joey. Excuse me, not Joey, DJ.
Joey.
I've too many broadcasts, man. My head is completely all over the place.
I get you.
Yeah, I've done that too many times this year. It's why I'm not happy about myself. But anyway, DJ, make sure I get it right the second time. What's it like for these drivers now as they calm themselves down? You mentioned you were at this race 2 years ago. It didn't go that well. What are the drivers feeling right now with fresh tires mostly across the board?
Well, they're going to be a little bit nervous because at this point, you've got to wait a couple of laps for those tires to come in and really get good grip. Because they're bias ply, they're not going to warm up as fast as the traditional racing tire that we talk about nowadays. And so what that means is it's going to be a little bit sketchy. It's going to be a little bit understeery on these opening laps. So you're going to have to be conscious of that and make sure that you get it together. The other thing that they're going to have to be watching out for here at this point is the whole field is bunching back up, and those drivers that were running in that second pack, they're going to recognize that they want to get a move on. They do not want to lose positions, and they do not want to have that gap develop again. So I think we're going to see some drivers around the Craig Forsyth, David Rodriguez, Christopher Hill territory, back down at about 12th, 13th, 14th. They're going to be very aggressive trying to hold on to the leaders here at this point.
Sam Ryman does his usual play of trying to lead a lap or at least stay out an extra lap, dives to pit lane the second time of asking, drops to the back of the field, but not the only car that headed off to pit lane trying to just top off the fuel and maybe get a bit more damage repair, thinking long term in this race. It is Jim Herrick that leads though now at the front of the field, and so maybe a good time for us to take a look at our arena driver profile. Now, Jim Herrick has always had some speed. The problem is he's always been in the wrong place at the wrong time, it feels. 19 starts, only 4 top 10s. The one win came here at Pocono, where yes, there was fuel mileage, but fuel mileage means you've got to figure that out to get to the front of the field.
Yeah, really and truly. And so we'll have to see if he's able to kind of play those two back and forth as they run. I'm going to be watching to see what Herrick's pace is going to be up at the front, though. Let's see what he decides to do. Maybe he's going to play a little bit of a fuel game. Let the likes of Zagers and O'Brien on by him and just try to hold on to the back. Maybe he's going to try to push and lead a few laps here at this point. Let's see.
He's been on track for 5 laps, so I think maybe it would be wise to tuck into line if he can. Cautions breed cautions. Turn 2, you said. Might be a bit more chock-a-block on restarts. What's the caution-o-meter in your head thinking right now?
I'm pretty impressed with the run that we've seen here today. I haven't seen what these guys are going to be like coming off of a single-file restart, but if we're going to see an incident, once again, look forward at about 10th place position. I think those are going to be the drivers that are hungriest. So
Anzaldo, Daniels, Hacker, and Wood. 4 cars retired. Richie Hearn still trying to get some damage, wrenched on his car. Green flag back in the air for the Next Level Racing Pocono 250. Now look at them snaking back and forth as they filter on down in towards turn number 1. Already a potential pass between the likes of Mike Rasmussen and Tyler Graf. I might be a bit worried that there potentially might be a penalty for jumping the start there if that was a move before the line. Hopefully no major drama for the number 1. O'Brien already passed Zagers though as they funnel up towards turn number 2 and into the tunnel turn.
Little bit of elbows out here, but nothing too aggressive. I like the style that we're seeing as it looks like the restart is relatively okay. Couple of 2 wide farther back in the field. Biggest gap we've got here at this point going to be between Ricky Harden and Samuel Fontaine in 20th and 21st.
You did see Richie Hearn peel back off to pit lane on the restart. Think the damage still too much for his machine. End of the lap. That restarts us. It's Jim Herrick that crosses the line. Almost half a second clear of Michael O'Brien. Zagers and Kraus, who drops back to 4th through the pit stop cycle. Not, I think, the worst thing in the world for Phil Kraus, because it puts him back now in a spot where he could be the one playing the drafting games. In fact, I would say for most of the field, it's working out decently because of the fact that Jim Herrick's at the front and giving them the help. Almost 3 wide as Matt Taylor's going to get pinched a little bit by Rodrigo Munoz, but he's not going to compromise, sends it through that second turn.
Well, if you're down on the low side there and you've got a driver that you trust, you can very easily go 2 wide through the tunnel turn and make that work. So kudos there to Taylor. He's trying to fight his way back up forward. He dropped down a little bit in the running. He started off 14th. He's got a little bit more room to make right now. Right now, it looks like he's doing just what he needs to do.
I love that this track is wide, and I love the fact that so far we haven't really seen the 4 and 5 wide that DJUT's might be a possibility.
Yeah, drivers have kept it together here, and normally when you see that, it's on the second lap after the restart as they go. That tends to be where the big battles fly off. As we take a look at the battle here for P10 right now, Mark Cohn and Christopher going at it 2 wide down into the tunnel turn. Let's see who blinks first.
I was really impressed by Mark Cohn. I think this was back in 2021 when he won the first 2 Triple Crown races of the Lionheart Retro Series. Unfortunately, then skipped the final round of the season, and so I didn't get the chance to win all 3. He's in 10th position, still in contention for the Watchman to add a watch to his collection. Did you see Denny Hamlin's hot take on Twitter earlier today?
Yes, I did.
What did you think about his claim that the clocks at Martinsville aren't that special because anyone can go to the shop down the road and buy an identical one?
I disagree with it. I could go out and make myself a Jack Brabham steering wheel look-alike, and it still doesn't mean I won the Australian Grand Prix. It doesn't matter what the trophy itself is. It is the significance behind the trophy that makes it so very special, in my opinion.
I get what you mean. I also kind of understand what Denny Hamlin means, because I do think there's something nice about the special nature of certain trophies. And the fact that you can be like, that's unique to a certain country. Formula One, I'm not saying all their trophies are good because they are very, sponsor-driven, but at least they're unique from race to race. That's the one thing that I like. And I think Denny's not wrong when he says that at least some of those trophies say win on them.
Yeah, very much so. You've got to find the fine line. I mean, I will also say one of my favorite trophies, one of my favorite supplemental things that we've ever seen in racing is when we've seen drivers go to Nashville and you get a guitar. I love having that kind of city or state or country personalization put into the trophy. Something to make it special that is indicative of where you were able to get the win.
IMSA once partnered with Paul Reed Smith, who are my... I've played guitar for a while. They are my preferred brand of guitars. There are plenty of guitar brands out there if you like those as well. But they partnered up with IMSA, and so when we did the IMSA esports stuff last year, I went off trying to find one of those guitars. There are some really cool trophies out there, and so I do like that. 3 wide for a moment in towards turn 1. Heart of the pack once again, where the action tends to be. We haven't seen it split up just yet as we head towards the halfway mark of this race, but we saw earlier the movers and shakers. Really impressed by one of the drivers that you called out earlier in terms of being able to work on forward, Sean Campbell, plus 20 positions. Mike Razmas behind, the defending champion. He's plus 18. We did call out Joe Hassert, though, as maybe being someone else who could work on forward. DJ, I'm blaming you for the commentator's curse. He's still down in 23rd.
Yeah, he's got a little bit more work to do here at this point, but Joe Hassert's certainly going to be one that you don't want to be racing against, I will tell you that. He's a very, very fierce competitor here, always good on the ovals, as right now we watch him actually working on the back of Ricky Harden. Thought he was going to have enough of a run to dive down to the first corner, but not enough to get it done here today.
In through onto the 41st lap of this race. It is 250 miles, it's a little bit longer, and again, just a reminder, it's not double points like some of the Triple Crowns have tended to be in certain other series, which is something else I can go back and forth them. The one thing that I do like about it is that we'll get to the end of the season, and it's not a double points race to determine a champion.
Yeah, exactly. It always feels a little bit disingenuous when you do have a double points race to finish out the season. I've never been a huge fan of it.
Now, the Indy 500 can be double points. I will live and die by that one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the same with Le Mans. The same with Monaco. If you're talking, well, Monaco 20 years ago, let's say.
Agreed. What's funny is they go with historic Grand Prix cars to Monaco every year as well. And if you watch the racing there, boy, is it fantastic. You can see clips on social media and stuff. Sean Campbell slides his way on forward to 4th. And the charge continues from that WMP racing car. I think Phil Krause is just in fuel conservation mode, so I'm not too worried about these swap arounds at the front. I was having this discussion, not on a broadcast, just completely unrelated, about how the modern era of Formula One has not delivered what they promised, and so what we really need to do is go back to 2007 and just rebuild those cars.
I mean, I'd be fine with that. Those cars sound incredible, let alone they look gorgeous. Let's just have some fun with those.
And they raced well.
Yes, they did.
That's the most important thing at this point, because I like entertaining races, and so let's try and do a little bit more of that. Settling into a rhythm once again here on lap 10 of the stint for the drivers that headed down on pit lane. I'm a little bit surprised that Jim Herrick, who won on fuel mileage 12 months ago, is still leading this race.
I am too, and I wonder if that's maybe a strategic decision here from Michael O'Brien. Maybe O'Brien's not really pushing as much to try to get on by him, and he's just letting him break the air here at this point, and O'Brien's able to save some fuel.
I think this is kind of worst case scenario at this point for Jim Herrick, already about halfway into his run to continue to be leading at the front. And so still a long way to go, but see how it plays on out. If you want to know some of the stats about our previous visits here, back in Season 2, 7th closest finish in series history, 100th of a second between Adam Blocker and Dustin Wardlow. A year later, 300ths of a second. We've also come here and split ourselves by 7 thousandths of a second. That was back in Season 5. Our first here on RaceSpotTV, when Mark Cohn rose from 13th to come out in front of Chris Reagan and Mike Rigney, the rest of your podium spots. Leading laps not always a guarantee, and indeed in the last 6 years only once has someone led the most laps and gone to victory lane. That was the same year that pole position went on to win the race.
Yeah, so but truthfully here with the setup that we've got today, I don't see anybody breaking away. I see these drivers being able to keep themselves up in the draft, so I think we're going to be in store for another very close race. As we watch Sean Campbell right now, thinking about trying to get a little bit of a move there on Zagers as they come down through the tunnel turn. You saw him kind of look down to the inside there, see if he wanted to maybe have the run. Decided not to go for it, waiting another day here, but clearly Campbell has got a lot of speed underneath that 26.
I mean, we shouldn't be shocked at the end of the day. Sean Campbell has already won 4 races in 4 attempts in the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series. It's been a remarkable run for him. Now, we are starting to see a little bit more ducking and diving. Matt Taylor, Tyler Graf, and Andrew Wood further behind in towards turn number 1, duking it out. Andrew Wood, someone that I called out in qualifying, needed to find a way to work on forward to be able to link up with the rest of his Team Talent teammates. And after I maybe called them out slightly for not being able to get all 3 drivers into the top 10, well, guess what? All 3 drivers inside the top 8 now.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, sometimes when you've got a little bit of speed and you've got a good team together, you're going to be able to get themselves up there, and that's going to give them more bites at the apple. Again, the more times you have drivers in those positions, the closer you're running on track, the more opportunities this is going to present for you, whether you're talking about a little bit of drafting help. And speaking of drafting help, Jim Herrick doing a little bit of the snake down the front straightaway.
You can see, though, the train's still relatively unbroken. There's a bit of separation starting to bubble up between Rodriguez and Forsyth for 14th and 15th positions, but outside of that, still pretty close quarters. The scary thing about Sean Campbell as well is, I'm not sure if he's listening to us today, but he certainly was on Monday in the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series race at Watkins Glen, while battling 3 wide for the lead of the race, in our YouTube chat, telling us that it wasn't necessarily so bad, telling us about the big incident that we had up through the S's and what his thoughts were and who was to blame.
Yeah, and Arjuna, I don't know about you, but I cannot imagine that level of multitasking. No, don't get me wrong. I'm sitting here looking at 6 screens right now, and my eyes are like a chameleon as I watch all of the action out on track. But that ability to be able to be talking and racing at that close to confines, just remarkable.
And not just talking, typing in YouTube chat. That's,
yeah.
Robert Milechka used to do it in cautions in the Lionheart Open Wheel Series, but to do it out while racing wheel to wheel, it's not fair when some drivers have that much talent.
No, it's really not, and it just goes to show you that well, there's a reason why we're up in the commentary booth here and not down in the cars racing here, because we're going to leave that to the best drivers.
I'll have you know that I almost came close to finishing inside the top 10 of a Lionheart 500. I ran out of fuel out of the final corner, and then I got slammed by Adrian Fernandez.
I mean, if you're going to get slammed by anybody, it might as well be Fernandez. That's one heck of a thing to be able to hold your head on.
The wonders of Lionheart.
Yep.
So, almost halfway through this one, and I'm feeling quite confident right now. Yes, we've had the 1 caution, but it's all filtering into place. I'll just remind everyone, though, that there's that nervous tension that builds. Tire change has already been done. The car gets faster, the lighter on fuel it is, but also the older the tires get to a point. The car starts to get loose towards the end of the race. We're racing at Legacy Pocono. It's a bumpy racing surface. They're going to be white-knuckle riding not just now, but even more once we get to the end, and they're just holding on and hoping that they'll end up at the front.
Yeah, and crucially here, we have to remember that Jim Herrick has about 4 more laps on this tank of fuel than anybody else around him, so that means he's probably going to have to come into the pits a little bit earlier, as we've got a little bit of too wide here going up through the field. That is going to be Andrew Wood making a move on Campbell.
Nice and easy. You can see those stint lengths on that left-hand side of the screen. Ignore the fact that Andrew Wood is marked as 18 laps into his run. That's just the quirk of how his pit stall was before the timing line. And so under caution, he technically has been counted as doing an extra lap. Jim Herrick a couple of laps longer. I wonder how much fuel saving he was able to do while rolling around under caution. We'll find out in about 12 laps time or so. I think the magic number is going to be 67. If you pit after that, you're relatively okay in terms of feeling like you'll get to the end, and then you'll only feel more confident if we get a couple of cautions after that.
Yeah, I think that's completely right, Arjuna. If you can make about 33 laps, that should be relatively good, but we'll have to see. If we get cautions, that's going to change everything else. But lap 67, that's going to be the magic number here that I think most of these drivers want to hit, if at all possible.
And I will throw this point out to you, which is that if we get to lap 67 without caution, look at what Jim Herrick has been able to do. I want to pit as soon as we hit that point that I know that I can make it to the end regardless of the number of cautions, because he's been in control so far. Andrew Wood and Sean Campbell continuing to go just back and forth, swapping around. But our leader has not really been challenged so much.
No, and I do wonder here if that is a little bit of a choice from Michael O'Brien, from Daniel Zagers, that they're just happy to run behind and save fuel. They know that Herrick's on an alternate strategy, and if they're able to extend a little bit longer, that's going to make things work for them. Remember, they were able to make 32 laps work on a tank of fuel, and that was with some pretty hefty slicing and dicing at the beginning of the race. And so at this point, they've been in single file order for this entire run here at this point, and I think they're going to be relatively content to just keep doing what they're doing. And if they can make that work to 33, 34, then once again, that 67 mark is going to be good as gold.
Another look at those team logos on that left side. Onto lap 53 we will turn. Team Talent 3, 4, 6. Michael O'Brien, the best of the graphics LC cars, and then Razmas Taylor Graf in line 7th through 9th positions. Team Talent able to start stacking up together. And we say that you can't go a lap down here when you come in pit. That means that if you do want to gamble, you mentioned this earlier, the more cars that you have, the more that you can split up your cars and maybe cover off some other alternate strategies. But a counterpoint to that is if Team Talent comes down at the first time of asking earlier than everyone else, it's a lot better for them if they're helping each other and able to draft and build up a bit more speed.
Very much so. Think about this a little bit like you see. Once again, we're going to draw this comparison going back to Daytona, going back to Dega. You are able to pit in a big group. You're not going to be running by yourself. You're not going to lose that draft, which is so crucial around here to be able to keep up those good speeds. And so if that is going to happen, well, we'll have to see how it changes.
Whoa, there's a move on Wood on the inside, and given how usually the car on the outside tends to be able to hold its line, teammates playing nice with each other, and now Andrew Wood is plus 28 positions. The biggest mover by far today. Still a long way to go in this race, and I'm going to throw Team Talent under the bus. I don't know if any of them are watching right now, but they're known for their issues on pit lane, both on pit lane entry, entry into the box, exit from the box, exit from the lane. There's plenty of treachery there, and so they've still got one cycle to work on through. Has started to pick up in intensity, though, as the yellow flag is going to fly.
It looks like that's Paul Jenkins. I see him off there. Rodrigo Munoz also involved in it.
So there's a couple of cars that end up getting tagged. The Backfire Motorsports car, the one that ends up already back down on towards pit lane, but second caution on the day, just as we were getting set for, I think, what was looking to be a very intriguing fight to the end. Replay machine will tell us more. Side by side with Luis Gonzalez Nunez out of the tunnel turn and in towards turn 3.
All right, let's see if this is a little bit of a situation of just a hair of understeer. Yep, just dove it into the corner there a little bit too deep. That was the coming together there. It's going to send both of those drivers. Oh, who was that caught a piece of it?
I think it's Jenkins, wasn't it? Yep, and then
yeah,
Jenkins.
That was Jenkins.
Maybe damaged suspension, because He did come in quite hot. Let's ride on board with him. He's not going to get much time to look, and now I'm going to be very curious if anyone comes in or if they try and wait 10 more laps like I would to come into pit lane. Reagan takes great avoiding action, and there's subsequent contact with, I think, the car that ended up in the catch fence at one point. I still don't know exactly who that is, but Paul Jenkins off and into the grass.
Yeah, and he is showing is disconnected from the server, so that is going to be Paul's day done and dusted here, unfortunately for them. What this is going to do, Arjuna, is this is going to really throw a wrench into that strategy call that we were talking about.
Oh no, Team Talent's found me. I'm running away. Sorry, DJ.
They're coming after you.
Joshua Chin's already in the chat. I'm sure Connor Harrington's not far behind, and then Jason Brophy will be as well. But curiously, guess what? They all come down to pit lane.
Yeah, I think this is the right call. The one thing this is going to do is now this will set up a one-stop race from this point out for all of these drivers. Now, there's a couple of drivers here that are rolling the dice. Fowler, Cohn, Rodriguez, Forsyth, White, Harden, and Hassert. They're all staying out. Now, they've got about 10, let's call it maybe 12 laps on this tank of fuel to be able to make it. They're going to be praying for a little bit more of yellow flags to come to help them out.
Off of the lane they go with, like you said, a handful electing to stay on track. It means that winning the race off of pit lane, O'Brien, Kraus, and then Wood from Zagers, Campbell, and Herrick. The important thing here, though, again, is who is up towards the front. And crucially, on lower fuel, they're going to be able to hold on to those positions as well. You've got, just counting, because never trust the commentator's math, 5 of the Graphics LC machines that run themselves having not come down pit lane, Michael O'Brien, then a 6th car inside of the top 8 that has come down pit lane before you find 3 of those Team Talent machines. This is where those communications, and if you have a spotter that's working for the entire team, boy, is he going to be helpful right now in trying to get you queued up to work together.
Yeah. Very, very much so, and especially with these drivers that are rolling the dice here on fuel strategy, they're really going to be needed there. Those spotters, those engineers on the wall, that's when you're going to need them. Crucially here, though, I think the drivers that are up in front here, the 5 or so, 6 or so, 7 or so, there, I got the number right eventually, 7 or so that didn't come in, they're going to be having to look at the fuel gauge. For everybody else on the track, from O'Brien on down, they know this is going to be a one-stop race from here on out, so they are able to absolutely book it and not have to worry about fuel conservation at all.
How long a stop are we going to end up seeing for those drivers that have stayed out as well? Because it's likely to be a short stop for the drivers that have come on in. Might not be as short for the 7 machines that have gambled on something different here. Valenzuela and Luis Gonzalez Nunez are coming back down on towards pit lane. Nunez involved in the caution. The contact that brought out the caution, Valenzuela in the back of our motorsports car may be trying something in terms of fuel games, but surely you can't make it 43 laps. That's a stretch too far.
No, that is going to be far too far to be able to make it. I would anticipate here, like I said, we're looking at maybe 12, 13 laps maximum for these drivers up at the front to come on into the pits. That's what they're going to be looking at.
How are you feeling right now in terms of, what did we call it earlier, your butt kicker long shots?
I mean, there's some pretty good names that we were looking at. We already mentioned Campbell is one to be able to move his way up through the field. He's been doing exactly that. And then there's my pick, Big Joe Hassert, up into 7th position. He's going to be right at the tail end of this leading group that didn't pit. Watch for him to play a little bit of fuel games here. Big Joe knows what he's doing on Oval. He'll be able to make this play pretty well.
Lights off on the pace car as well, so we're getting ready to rumble. David Rodriguez up there, and that's another one that I think is going to be interesting to watch. Someone that we've seen play fuel mileage interestingly as well. And with so many of the Graphics LC Nezumi teammates stacked up at the front, they're in a great spot to now pace this race the way that they want. They've got Team Talent behind, WMP Racing, 4D Sim Racing all stacked up there as well. Who's going to be the one to really get things cracking? 2 cautions so far, and so green flag about to fly once more. It's Chris Fowler that picks up the throttle. We're racing in the Pocono Mountains. Mark Cohn caught a little bit napping there initially. He's not the one that we're worried about, though, because they go 3 wide, slightly further behind the drivers that came down pit lane, already starting things off.
I told you they had nothing to worry about in terms of fuel conservation, and they are absolutely proving it here at this point. They stay 3 wide coming out of turn 2, or coming out of turn 1, almost 4 wide.
We are 4 wide. Is Matt Taylor going to back out of this one? Somehow we'll become 2 wide, 2 rows deep, and Taylor almost runs into the back of Jim Herrick in that 4D sim racing car. But incredibly, 4 wide, not major drama, as we'll cycle around out of turn 3 once more to end lap 58. Only about 10 laps away from seeing those top 7 machines thinking about heading off towards pit lane.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they deal with that, but this is fast and frenetic farther back down in the field. We're 3 wide again there for a moment. His drivers continue to try to work their way up. Let's see if we're going to get anything down into turn 1. A little bit of alternating lines here as they go, but everybody keeping it clean.
Getting stacked up at the front, though. Forsyth in 3rd, White, Rodriguez now 4th and 5th positions as once again. Matt Taylor pops out of line to make it 3 abreast. He's got Sean Campbell as well as Chris Stouffer for company. Stouffer in that 4D sim racing car going to hold on to the spot, but Matt Taylor climbs up in front of our championship leader. As per usual, we are seeing a little bit more action back in the pack, and that's what Pocono allows. Even if you're not running 3-4 wide through the corners, DJ, the width that we have allows drivers to find clean air on the nose, which is all they're looking for stacked up on the track.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they want, trying to just get a little bit of clean air on the front of the car. Even if it's just a hair of clean air, they're going to certainly be going for it. 2 wide coming there out of turn 1, as it looks like they're still going to be side by side. That's Drew White, a name we really haven't mentioned a whole lot here today. Drew doing a great job being up in P4 right now.
I think looking to the inside as well of Craig Forsyth, and if they can dispatch of that 4D sim race car, it will allow Graphics LC to take a lot stronger of a stranglehold on the race. Got Rodriguez up the inside of Drew White. Drew White in a team with Mark Cohn, by the way, just 2 of the, I think it's Nezumi Graphics LC special entries. And because I don't think we're going to necessarily see Mark Cohn week in and week out. It's been a busy couple of weeks, not just for us in the broadcast booth, bouncing back and forth with the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series and this Lionheart Retro Series. There's been plenty of Lionheart Open Wheel Series racing as well. And so next week, not an off week for the drivers because they're back out on track in the Dallara IR18. We at least get to rest our voices for a week.
Oh, you do. I'm going to be off in Circuit of the Americas hooting and hollering for SRO, so unfortunately I get no break at all.
You know there's not actually a break. It's just no break from It's a break from Lionheart.
It's a break from Lionheart, which is unfortunate because this is always the highlight of any week when it comes up.
I think it would be very different if we were doing this every week, though. Not from our perspective. We would love it. I think the drivers would get sick of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I can tell you when I ran this full schedule, this is not an easy schedule to run, Arjuna. It requires a lot of dedication and a lot of commitment. I mean, we're talking about a massive, massive season that stretches over the course of the entire year. And to keep your concentration up over the course of that 10, 12-month run is very, very difficult.
Whoa! That's Joe Hassert trying to bully his way past Craig Forsyth. He gets down on the curb, and here comes David Rodriguez to try and take advantage as Forsyth holds on to 4th position. They're trying to not be calm at the front right now.
No, they're not, and I think this is a little bit of an indication here at this point that we're probably reaching the end of that fuel window for these drivers, and they are fighting here at this point to try to get themselves into the best position when they have to come down into pit lane, because frankly, the best way to be able to get a good position coming out of pit lane is having a good position coming into pit lane.
Let's hope it's not a curse pit entry for Chris Fowler. Lap 30 on the run for the drivers at the very front of the field, who still have themselves all running in line, and then the cars that came down pit lane all filtered in behind them. It's still Michael O'Brien that runs at the front, but it's now Phil Kraus that is second with Taylor, Zagers, Razmas, Stouffer, Campbell, and then Graf behind. Andrew Wood, one of the drivers that slipped a little bit further back in the pack as a result of the pit stop cycle. And so Team Talent now trying to form up once again after Wood getting a little bit chopped up on that restart. Officially 2/3 through this race, though. getting to the point where we'll be 2/3 through this race, and to the point where, like I was saying earlier, I would feel comfortable if I was Fowler, Cone, and White and company to come in and knowing if a caution comes out, I'll be back up towards the front.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost a dream situation there for them coming down into the pits. They may have called this pretty well and right here. The question's going to be is how quickly they can make that pit stop. Now, the fast pit stop time that we're going to be looking at here is going to be sub 10 seconds. These drivers are not going to be taking tires, and I think at this point, if they're able to tickle down to the 8, even 7 seconds on a pit stop, we are going to be in a great position for them to do well.
And they're not waiting for the tire, that's the benefit, so they can go as short as they want, and if they're brave, they could even short fill a little bit and pray for some cautions to come and interfere with proceedings. Craig Forsyth goes on the defense while going on the offense as well. Joe Hassert gets the serve returned, and the elbows come out from Forsyth, but he's now going to get compromised off the corner. David Rodriguez tries to pull alongside, but no dice for the time being. The benefit again that these drivers will have is lighter on fuel, faster in a straight line. I think it goes to give a bit of credit to O'Brien and Kraus to have held as close to the back of the top 7 as they have. And give a shout out to Taylor, who's been able to work his way back forward into what is now technically net 3rd spot.
Yeah, that's a great run there for Taylor to be up into that position as they thunder across the start-finish line here at this point. Remember what I said about those drivers that came down into pit lane 10 laps ago on that last yellow. So there's a little bit of a poke to the inside there for David Rodriguez as he tries to go. Contact into the wall, yellow!
And it's Craig Forsyth and it's Joe Hassert, and I'll be honest saying that you probably could have seen that one coming. A hellacious incident. And instantly the race is reset. They'll all be down pit lane this time by, and they'll be good to the end. A big one once again, and it's the 3rd caution of the day. And here's a look at, well, not how it started, because we'd have to go back a couple of laps to see that. This is how it ends.
Here they come down into turn 1. You're going to see the move here coming from Hassert. He thinks he sees it down to the inside. Forsyth up on the high side there. Hassert comes on in.
Oh, it's Rodriguez.
Oh, that is Rodriguez. Excuse me.
Ooh.
My apologies.
And then Dan Zagers tries to send Joe Hassert to the moon.
Yeah, he was up and spinning for a long time there.
Let's jump on board with Craig Forsyth for a second here, because I think we're going to see from his perspective that Rodriguez is down low. Is Hassert pinching? Could you make that argument? I'm not sure.
It's tricky, Arjuna, because it's not necessarily like traditional racing line through turn 1 here. If you watch Hassert, he is, you know what? Watching that, if you watch the seam there on the that low seam, Hassert does appear to drift pretty far down to the left there on that. If we watch this again, watch him coming through here. He's going to clear by 1. And then he's going to keep moving in that lane and come down on the other. Now, there's a little bit of movement up, but there is more movement there from Hassert. And look at that. He was sideways. He was starting to lose the car mid-corner.
That may have been the dreaded netcode a little bit there as well. But I think the important thing is, that's the great thing about having the seams, is that we get a great visual representation on the lines that they're running on the arc through the corner. Yes, Rodriguez slides up a little bit, but Joe Hassert is trying to pinch him tight and maybe got to expect a little bit more, especially with tires that are now technically a full fuel run through. Here we go, though. It is going to be a short shake-up, though, because you'd expect the 5 cars rather that have elected to now stay out and still survive at the front are going to need a full tank of fuel and maybe a second can of fuel if we want to get super specific. The cars behind that came in on the previous caution should be here for a splash and dash.
Yeah, they should only need probably, I'm going to estimate about 5 to 6 seconds of fuel. Meanwhile, for the likes that were up in the front, we're going to be looking at a full anywhere between 7 to 9 seconds worth of filling. So here they come roaring off of pit lane. And yep, you called it right. O'Brien, Kraus up to the lead.
Then Rasmus, Taylor, Zagers, Cone, and Stouffer the rest. Stouffer with a 5.9 second stop, so very, very short for him. Whereas Cone, 9.3 seconds, still ends up coming out in 6th position. So goes to show you the major differences there. Fowler, one of the longest of them all, at an 11-second stop. And after leading coming into the caution period, he's down in 10th spot now.
He's down in 10th spot, and here's going to be the interesting thing, Arjuna. Looking at when we're going to get restarted here, I think you may having to be doing fuel conservation for maybe a lap or two. You're going to have to save maybe a lap's worth of fuel, maybe 2 laps worth of fuel, but it's not going to be a lot. That means the gloves are going to be off here for this race, and the likes of Fowler, of Sirwa, that are a little bit farther back in the field here at this point, and Fowler already mentioned, they're going to be gloves off. They're going to be pushing. And so I think it's not altogether out of the question that we can see them back up in the front here shortly.
Again, you see those movers and shakers, 21 for Rasmus, 10 for Taylor, etc., etc. It comes down to this, though. We've gotten through 2 pit stop cycles. We've had the 3 cautions so far, and there is the likelihood that maybe we'll get a few more. But the only lap that counts is the lap at the end, and given the margins that we've had, DJ, given the fact that only once has the driver that has led the most laps has gone on to HyperX victory lane, it doesn't matter what happens on the 99 previous laps. At the end of lap 100, that's the one you need to lead at.
Exactly, and we're going to have to see who is able to do that. It's going to be about timing the run here. That's going to be the word we're going to start to use more and more. Timing that run coming out of turn 3. Watch for drivers in the last 10 laps, not necessarily to be trying to go for an overtake at that point, but for trying to figure out, okay, if I put the throttle down at this point coming through turn 3, I'm going to be just a fraction ahead at the line, and that's going to be enough to take victory.
I'm going to get out in front of it before we get back underway with the lights already off on the iRacing pace car as we head down into turn 2. We'll have a short commercial break at some point between now and the end. Once we get that done, though, we will be commercial free to the end to what is hopefully a barn burner of a finish and a 7th consecutive race here at Pocono that would end without a caution. It's trending well, though, DJ. You were maybe a little bit pessimistic with your over-under of 7.5. 70 laps through, only 3 cautions so far.
Yeah, we're looking good here at this point, but once again, this is when drivers are going to start getting a little bit scrappy. They know what's coming down the pipe here at this point. They want to be aggressive about it. They want to try to put themselves into the best position. And this is where we could see some drivers really get into some very nasty incidents.
Most important question, though. We haven't talked about it yet. Where do you want to be coming to the white flag? Do you want to be first, second, third, fourth? Where's the best place to end the race on the top?
I think you want to be in P2, dive it down into turn 1. I think by the time they get to the tunnel turn, though, you want to be in the lead.
So Michael O'Brien has climbed up from qualifying down in 5th to lead us as the caution flew for the 3rd time. It's a sprint to the end. Already sprinting 3 wide almost in towards turn number 1 as we check ourselves up on the restart. It's Mark Cohn in the middle of the sandwich. Christopher trying to go up to the inside and immediately work his way on forward. They'll filter their way on through with Dan Zagers on the high line able to hold on while O'Brien leads them on the run to the tunnel turn.
Oh, and that was all kinds of sketchy. We were talking about mere millimeters in between those drivers as they came down out of turn 1. We take a look from above, side by side with Kraus and Rasmus there for P2. And it looks like a little bit farther in the field, we've got a driver dropping back down just a little bit.
I wouldn't be shocked if drivers want to be a little bit smart now, figure out where everyone is trying to be aggressive, and then heading into the final stages, you get a much better picture on where you want to place your own machines. O'Brien leads from Kraus, Rasmus, Taylor, and Zagers the top 5, with Cohn, Stouffer, Campbell, Rodriguez, and Graf. Reality is, any 10 of those drivers is a potential race winner today, and you look even further back, more names you'd expect to be at the front.
Yeah, very much so, and I was actually going to comment there that there was a pretty big gap starting to grow between Sean Campbell and David Rodriguez, but Rodriguez had a mega turn 1, and he was able to close that gap back down, so there is pretty much this entire field that is in the draft train here at this point.
I did see a bit more 3 wide with Christopher Hill, Alex Guyon, and Andrew Wood. It's Woodith in the Team Talent 64 that backs out, lets Guyon fight on the inside of Christopher Hill's 31 machine. Once again, back of the pack where it's a little bit more tense. However, for the first time on a restart, there's more anxiety at the front and the attempts being made. Christopher went so aggressive that he's actually going to lose out potentially to the likes of Mark Cohn, maybe even Sean Campbell as well. Moves that you make aren't always beneficial if they compromise you because you've got long straights connecting the corners.
Very much so. You've got to be thinking big picture here at this point, and it's okay to slice and dice a little bit if you're up in the top 10 and go a little bit too wide, take an aggressive move, and maybe fall back a little bit. But I think if you're looking from Chris Fowler, Jim Herrick on back, you have got to make 100% confident moves that you are not going to lose time doing, because you cannot afford to lose that speed here at this point in the race.
I think we should be good to the end, though. I don't think anyone is going to be cutting it so close that they're going to be saving some fuel right now, regardless of how many cautions we have to the end. Sean Campbell, there was a bobble off the wall by Christopher. Campbell gets contact, but I think it was square enough that there shouldn't be damage to the WMP Racing number 26. But that's the jeopardy that we're talking about now in the closing stages.
Yes, it is. This is where it's all coming to play for, with about 27, 28 laps to go. They're going to sort themselves back into single file order as they head down into the tunnel turn, but who's going to be the driver that wants to poke their nose out? Who's going to be the driver that wants to make the look? It looks like Campbell's going to have a little bit of a go there on the back of Christopher. He thinks better of it and falls back into line.
I get the sense that we may have a swap for the lead, because Matt Taylor is right up the wing of Phil Krause, and it's about a second that splits 10 machines. Let's grab a quick look at this moment on board with David Rodriguez, and you just see off the corner, Stouffer bounces off the wall. I think they got away with one there.
Yeah, I think they did as well. I can tell you they're very, very lucky. That is a carbon copy of what happened to me at Pocono 2 years ago. Car got up a little bit into the wall, made contact, came back across the track, and we weren't so lucky, and it ended both of our races.
Coming to 25 laps to go. Taylor hasn't gone for it just yet. Zager's going defensive from, I think, Sean Campbell, who gets past Mike Rasmas, and now O'Brien on the outside, hung out to dry. Not just Zager's through, but Sean Campbell as well. Outside where you want to be through turn 1, not where you want to be through turn 2.
No, certainly not, and that's because of the flat nature of that corner, that diminishing banking that we talked about from 1 to 2 to 3. You need to be down on the inside there, but I'll tell you what, Campbell is making moves here at this point. That car looks very, very good.
So coming to within the final 25 laps of the first Triple Crown race in this 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. Just the 3 cautions so far, but the most recent one setting up a sprint to the checkered flag. Don't go anywhere on RaceSpotTV. We'll be right back with a run to the checkered flag with this Next Level Racing Pocono 250 presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV as we rumble in the Pocono Mountains for the first Triple Crown of the Lionheart Retro Series. A tense 76 laps or so have built us into this run to the checkered flag where the battle for the lead has finally started to kick off. Arjuna Kankipati alongside with DJ Clark and DJ Sean Campbell started to look towards the front. Phil Kraus for a moment was not in the lead, but as we return from commercial, we're going to caution.
Yes, as it looks like that was Fowler, I believe, that may have gotten involved in that as I see him down into pit lane.
I think you're right. It was Chris Fowler, so the timing of our return may be fortuitous because we'll be able to grab a look at what has befallen to potentially the cursed number 20 of Chris Fowler. So here we go. We'll take a look outside. We're going to have to spool it back a little bit further, but I'm going to guess Dirty Air had something to do with this one.
Yeah, Dirty Air, probably a little bit of understeer here for the number 20 machine. Let's take a look at this coming down into turn 3, dives the car down low. He's got 3 cars pretty much in front of him, tries to be able to get it back up, tries to jink out to the outside, and just didn't have the front end grip. That car did not want to make the turn.
Was it a jink or was it a wiggle? I think it's a wiggle. Is it a checkup from Tyler Graf or is it the car getting loose? That's what I can't tell.
It didn't. I think it was a checkup from Graf there. That's what my instinct says at that point because the hands were in response to it. If he was going to start to lose that, you'd see a much more aggressive pull to the right-hand side of the car on that wheel, and it didn't look like he necessarily did that. It looked like it was just a slight little adjustment as he slowed up a little bit. Yeah, because he straightened the wheel. I'm watching it back here, Arjuna. He straightens the wheel as he comes into the corner and tries to brake a little bit. So I don't think the car got loose. I think that was a checkup from Tyler.
High-speed racing, split-second decisions, no blame, and I'm sure the teammates will have a discussion, and no harm, no foul. We'll restart with 20 to go if the lights go off on the pace car this time by, which they have not, so make that 19 to go. I just got the information from Team Talent. Phil Kraus has got on fuel to the end, so he's not worrying about fuel mileage. And so, for the most part, I would assume that through the field, surely we're in a similar spot, especially with this caution that helps the drivers out. The concern that potentially I have here is that Phil Kraus only took a right front in his stop. He's probably still good on tires. Apparently, Matt Taylor took no tires, and I am slightly concerned about how loose his car is going to get because the right front has taken an enormous amount of abuse in the previous 80 or so laps, and it's still got to survive 20 more.
Yeah, very, very much so. It's going to be interesting to see. This is where the damage is going to start to come into play a little bit. But as you said, Arjuna, we heard there from Team Talent from Philip Kraus that he's going to be good on fuel. I think the rest of the field is going to be good on fuel. Remember, we were saying they may need to save 1 lap, maybe 2 laps worth of fuel. Well, that's out the window. They can go full bore here.
This is where the compromise that we're going to have as well with the drivers that took the tires in the first cycle, about around lap 33, and those that took it around lap 66, because as the tire gets older, it gets looser, but it gets faster, and so even though Phil Kraus took the 1 tire, he'll be in a pretty good spot, all things considered, compared to drivers that took tires around lap 66, who have maybe got quote-unquote fresher tires, but slower tires, and right now it's all just about getting to the checkered flag first. In terms of movers and shakers, again, let's just remind everyone of how qualifying was not important at this track. And so even if Phil Kraus becomes just the 2nd driver in 7 seasons to convert from pole position to HyperX victory lane, it's the plus 23s, the plus 11s, plus 15s, the plus 17s, plus 19s. The number of double-digit gains that makes one of these races at Pocono, DJ, such a lottery for everyone.
Yeah, it really and truly does, and that's one of the great things about Pocono is that it's such a special track when you talk about racing it, when you talk about the strategy on it, you're able to move your way up through the field. You know, it's not really like we saw last time out in New Hampshire where even if you had a fast car, that aero wash was going to keep you a little bit farther back down in the order. You're able to move. You're able to shuffle your way up through the field here today, and I don't think we're done seeing a couple of drivers on some good runs here at this point. We've got some quick drivers in about 10th place position or so. I'm looking at our defending winner here, Jim Herrick, David Sirwa there as well, although he's down 11 on the day. Not going to be his best run, but even the likes of O'Brien and Rasmus, they're going to be trying to get their way ahead here, and I think they're very feasibly able to do it.
So I think it's the 4th caution that we've had so far today. Cautions do breed cautions. They get more and more likely the closer you get to the end of the race. How are the drivers feeling right now in terms of having seen 4 cautions and knowing that, yes, they need to race hard, but they need to race in a good, smart, intelligent fashion to keep themselves out of trouble if the big one does kick off?
Well, that's going to be the catch-22 that they have to sort of navigate here. And I think they're going to be thinking about that. They're going to be thinking about the big one here probably for the next 10 to 15 laps or so. But Arjuna, when you come down to 5 laps to go here at a Triple Crown event, going down to the checkered flag, you're not worried about wrecking out. It is wreckers or checkers. You want the win.
This has seen plenty of close finishes. The site of not just the 5th and the 7th, but also the 15th closest finish in series history. Pace car hopefully down and away for the final time today. 19 laps left on the board. Already a couple of cars checking up. What's this going to mean on the restart? We're about to find out. Green flag back in the air for the next level racing Pocono 250. Phil Kraus gets a good jump, but look at Christopher looking to the outside of Dan Zagers to potentially swarm around the outside as they work onto the 14 degrees of banking to restart the race.
All right, couple of little movers and shakers here. I'm not surprised that we didn't see a jump on to going down into turn 1 for the lead. We haven't really seen that play itself out here today. Kraus has been able to control the good field, but now's where the draft comes into play as they go down into the tunnel turn.
Stouffer trying to look again on Zagers, but no dice this time by. Same thing going for Cone as he tries to work up past Rodriguez and restore himself into the top 5. If your leg isn't Christian Horner style tapping away, if you're not feeling nervous right now, start getting nervous. I don't feel like I'm overhyping it, DJ. We're going to start seeing the sends. Here we go for second.
Here we go. We're going to be Noah's Ark coming down into the corner, and we're going to see a pass for the lead as Taylor goes down to the inside.
Maybe the 2-for-1 for Taylor as he uses that draft to slip on by Kraus. Outside will give him some momentum, but Sean Campbell will try and fire it potentially up the middle. If he thinks about taking it 3 wide, it's Zagers that thought about that for a second. Taylor will chop off his run. Side by side, 2 rows deep, as now Kraus has to give a bit of room. Taylor slides up through the tunnel turn and into turn 3. It's still Noah's Ark. Throw a blanket over them.
An absolute blanket on him. Sean Campbell doing what we talked about a little bit earlier, trying to get some clean air on that wing, running directly in between Taylor and Kraus. And now he's going to have a run to the outside as Taylor darts down to the inside.
Once more, there was almost contact. Remember, Taylor has not taken tires. He's fast, but he's loose, and the Kraus is aware. Zagers to the inside will try and pinch Taylor as well. Has to back out of that one, and as Kraus tries to slide down the track and compromise the number 8 machine, it's still side by side for the lead, a full lap and counting.
All right, here they go. What are they going to be able to do here at this point? Still side by side coming down into the corner, as now it looks like Taylor's going to have a nose ahead. Kraus going to lose a little bit of momentum right now on that high side. We talked about the high lane, not the way to be through the tunnel turn, as now it looks like it's going to be Taylor and Campbell. Campbell up on the high side. They're going every which way.
I think Taylor's clear, at least for the time being. Kraus will try and get back into line, but it's Campbell that will take it 3 abreast, and he'll duck down to the inside, which is probably for the best. He'll have a little bit more grip, has the ability to try and keep Taylor's looser car tight. 3 wide into the corner though, and contact. Kraus comes together with his teammate. Caution flies once again, and Team Talent go from 3 to 1 in the blink of an eye.
Oh, and that had a little bit of writing on the wall there with just as close as they were running. I'm not entirely surprised that we saw some contact. Let's go back and take a look at the replay.
We've already passed the initial contact that ends up setting it off, and I feel like probably the best way for us to take a look at this is going to be super slow-mo potentially. Really, I think it's the 2 Team Talent cars that get the worst of it. I think we went to our super slow-mo a little bit early there. We'll slow it down now, and so you can see that it's a rather wide entry from Matt Taylor, and so Kraus has to go very, very wide, and so I think he doesn't recognize that, turns in a little bit early. That's all they wrote.
Yeah, and it just looks like the rear end of that car absolutely stepping out on him. I don't know if we can see over here. Let's take a look at this, because Arjuna, I'm not entirely convinced. I'm not sure there was contact. I think he got up into the marbles.
I don't know. The quote-unquote marbles don't tend to do too much on iRacing. You can see the discrepancy in turn-in. I don't know. I'm loath to say there's netcode, but I almost feel like there is just the sense of that.
Yeah, there's a sense of netcode. I will give another potential answer to what we saw take place there. And I think what that was is that you saw that car up on the high side try to turn in a little bit on Taylor, realized he was there, and have to adjust his driving line. And that little bit of adjustment through the corner, I wonder if he backed off a little bit, then put the pedal down, and just some kind of change in the car's state at that point, and that was just enough to unsettle the car. Remember, we're coming near the end of the race. These tires are worn. These tires are very, very slippery here at this point. There's not as much grip as there used to be, and these cars are light, and so they are by definition lighter and looser at that point. So that may have been an issue where there actually wasn't contact.
We'll see if we can get word from Phil Kraus, potentially. 15 to go. Yellow flag will continue to fly. Long pace laps, which also means that when we restart, cold tires as well, cooler tires. Takes a bit for them to get back up to speed. Phil Kraus off to pit lane. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to bring it back up just so that, DJ, we do not forget it. It's Darlington for stock cars. It's throwback week in the real world, in the virtual world. Phoenix, Mosport, Milwaukee. I think those are the three picks for what are going to be Lionheart's throwback week, I've decided.
Yeah, I like that a lot. George, get in contact with us. We'll make this a thing because there's so many options to be able to run here. So many brilliant liveries that have graced open wheel racing in America. Whether you talk about the Yellow Submarine, the STP liveries back in the day of Gordon Johncock and Mario Andretti. AJ's liveries throughout the years. Anything from Penske, Team Cool Green even. I could go on for days at the number of liveries I want to see.
Which is why we have to make it a thing. Poor Tyler Graf. We're going to have to make him make a lot more liveries because I think he's done most of the grid anyway, and so he's going to have to redo them for us. Sean Campbell has jumped into the YouTube chat, by the way. He says, I am terrified, which I don't blame him. He's in second right now, plus 23 positions, and he's already seen how loose Matt Taylor is. Outside or inside? Where are you popping to first if you're that WMP Racing number 26?
Here is my strategy coming down off of the restart. We've not really seen any challenge for the lead going into turn one. I think the leader's just able to get too good of a jump off of the line. So what I would do is I would run the car very, very high coming into turn one and arc that corner as much as possible to carry as much momentum as you can coming down the straightaway into turn two. I would use that momentum to immediately stick to the inside and make the pass there.
Can see them getting swarmed up now. Restart will be with 13 laps to go. So I think that was, did we burn 3 laps off or 4 laps off?
I think it's 4.
This is where we're going to have to go to the lap times, aren't we, to actually go and check. We're on to lap 88. I think the caution ended up flying on lap 85, so it's going to be 4 total laps that get burnt. So does that mean the point of no return is effectively 4 to go?
Yes, that would. If that's what we're seeing, that's exactly what it is.
Sean Campbell is trying to just tease us right now by saying that if he told us what his right front tire was right now, we wouldn't believe him. You can't do stuff like that.
No, you really can't. You really, really can't. There, we've got the answer. 39% at the pit stop. My goodness.
And that doesn't mean that he's taken 39% of the tire's life. It means that he's taken 70% of 60%. Never trust a commentator's math.
60%.
60% of the tire wear. That is remarkable. I'm a bit nervous for everyone now. Although, if anyone's going to hold on to the bucking bronco of this Lotus 79, I probably have faith in Sean Campbell above, unfortunately, everyone else in this field. It's just the level that I've started to hold him to. No matter what car we see him in, no matter what series, no matter how little practice he's got, he's always at the front.
Yeah, he's always quick, he's always fast, and those drivers here on the sim are always, always dangerous. And the biggest testament here to him is the fact that he's able to do it in modern machinery and vintage machinery. see a lot of drivers that are quick in modern-day GT3s or open-wheelers, but they come into the Lotus 79 here, and they see them all kinds of out of sorts. Campbell, not the case at all.
Once again, you see a couple of cars peeling off a little bit from the wall as we get ready to restart, scared of the checkups. Almost 3 wide for a moment, coming towards the line. Hopefully no black flags once again. I'll bring that up. If you make a pass before the line on the left-hand side, a black flag will be automatically applied. Taylor leads from Campbell though, cantering into 1, filtering out 2 and 3 wide behind them off of turn 1. Up high goes Christopher in the 40 sim racing car. Not much he could really do, not much grip and purchase for him. Into the tunnel turn, here goes Sean Campbell for the lead.
And look at what Campbell was doing coming into turn 1. Arjuna, I do not believe it, at over 160 miles an hour, he was wiggling. He was warming up the tires.
Sean Campbell things at the end of the day. We haven't talked much about track conditions, so a quick look into that. It's been relatively calm. We've been racing through the afternoon, just past 5 p.m. virtual standard time. Track temperatures pretty ideal with not much cloud cover. Here's a cloud cover potentially though at the front, because it's getting very, very intense for the lead as Sean Campbell ducks down low. It's Matt Taylor up high and his teammate O'Brien working behind.
All right, let's see what they're able to do. 90 laps that we're working on here at this point. We ride on board with Mike Rasmus, who sits back in the popcorn position, just trying to pick a lane here on what's going to be fastest coming into turn 3.
And O'Brien's going to now try and force his way past Sean Campbell outside. Not where you want to be through that tunnel turn, and if the Graphics Nezumi LC guys can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean a good spot to hold on to the positions. Potentially they could make it 1 through 7. Given how things have played out so far. Mark Hone in the mix as well. He's always quick in a Triple Crown race. Can he win here at Pocono once again? He's bottled up behind Matt Taylor. Sean Campbell back down low on O'Brien.
All right, they're going to be Noah's Ark down into the corner 2 by 2. Looks like Cone gets the option of where he wants to run here at this point. He was doing what I was talking about a little bit earlier, running down the hill there off of 1, trying to carry momentum. It's not going to work. He's going to have to move back up to the high side.
So within 10 to go, everyone knows that within 4 or 5 to go, the next flag would end the race. Track position is everything right now. You do not want to give it up. We are 2 wide through almost the top 10. We almost went 4 wide for about 15th position. No one wants to give an inch. 9 laps left on the board.
And I think somebody may have scraped the wall there coming off at 3. I couldn't tell for sure, though, as it looks like O'Brien and Campbell are still going to be perfectly parallel. Taylor dancing back and forth, trying to pick a line on where he wants to go. Cone's been shuffled down into 6th place as Mike Rasmus and Drew White are entering into the conversation.
Note the lack of rookies at the front. You've got Campbell, you've got White, but the rest are wily old veterans. Drivers that have experienced what Pocono has to offer before. Know various approaches to trying to solve the problems, and they've solved it so far. Sean Campbell with a big wiggle down through the tunnel turn, still though, alongside with O'Brien.
Yeah, we're seeing some wiggles here out of these cars, and that's scaring me a little bit, but these drivers don't seem to be deterred by it as Campbell finally able to swap there in front of Michael O'Brien. He's going to hold on, but O'Brien's going to look down to the inside. Just
take a look from this perspective. You've got about 7 lanes if you really wanted to run them down this main straight, but into turn 1 it really funnels on down. O'Brien tries to pinch down low and will sweep up to grab the lead behind. Drew White's up to grab a podium position. We mentioned his name a little bit earlier. He has gained 25 positions so far, the biggest mover on the day.
Yeah, Drew's looking really, really strong here. The question's going to be, as we haven't seen him at the front, what's his aggression level going to be like here as they come off the tunnel? Turn with that contact behind!
Tyler Graf, Jim Herrick, those are the 2 cars involved, and the caution will fly to set up what should be a 3-lap shootout to the end. Defending race winner, blown engine, heading back to pit lane.
You hate to see that there, but remember what I said at the beginning of the race, Arjuna. You've got to be careful about running too wide through the tunnel turn. So watch this whole setup here coming off of 1.
I think it's always important for these late race incidents to go back and look, because it all builds from before. And so heading into turn 2, Herrick looking down low in the 40 sim racing car. We've got Tyler Graf, who was up high, and then as Herrick, does he clip the below the apron? I think that's maybe what sets it off. Big hit for Herrick, already engine blown. Graf ends up on his lid. Good avoiding action from that yellow car.
Yeah, very good avoiding action indeed. Let's take another look at this. We're going to ride on board with Herrick as they come down to the corner. That's Groff in that sort of dark green machine. No, I don't think he caught the inside curve there, Arjuna. I just think that was a little bit of understeer that he picked up with the dirty air in front of him.
Yeah, that could have been a lot worse with the bounce back up onto track for Jim Herrick, our defending race winner. Slow it down once again. All this means is really for Matt Taylor, I think. It's the ideal situation because it allows his very worn tires to nurse a little bit. Sean Campbell's in a similar boat, it sounds like, as well. I think it's going to be 3 or 4 laps to go. Depends on how quickly the iRacing automated coursing sequence will cycle on through. And with that most recent yellow flag, it brings the total up to 6 for today, DJ.
All right, let's hope we can keep it at that under mark. Remember, I said about 7.5 was the line here today. With the action that we saw coming off of that last restart, Arjuna, I hope we can keep this clean and green at the end because that was some of the best racing I've seen all year long.
I think the likelihood is the next caution would be the last caution, so we still end up with less than 7.5, so I guess that's good. I don't know. Maybe. Still, 6 is the fewest number of cautions we've ever seen here at Pocono, so I'll bring that up. It was 6 back in Season 2, it was 6 back in Season 6, so 12 months ago. Looking, hopefully, to be 6 once again. A 9 back-to-back in Seasons 3 and Seasons 4. Right now, Sean Campbell would not be the deepest driver to come from the back of the field to win this race. He qualified, down in 25th position. Lionel Callisto won this race from 27th back in Season 4.
All right, so clearly we've got some precedent here for them moving their way up through the field.
Drew White would break the record.
Yeah, he would. He would indeed.
Ricky Harding would too. I'm trying to look through for where the storylines are because I'm trying to stay optimistic and that, we'll get to the checkered flag, but I'm also setting up for the possibility that we might not get to see that.
Yeah, we very well could, unfortunately, if we do get that yellow here, because once we get back to green flag conditions, it is going to be the next flag will end it.
I think it's going to be 4 to go, because we'll come to the line this time by. Hopefully lights on the pace car go off, meaning we have 1 to go. I ask you the question that I asked slightly earlier. Where do you want to be coming to the white flag? Let's say we're still full speed racing, 2.5 miles left to go. How are you trying to position your car to win this race?
I think, from what I have seen here at this point, Arjuna, I think you want to be in P2, and I think that strategy that I talked about, we saw some drivers really start to employ that on this last restart. Arc it down through turn 1, and then try to make the move into the tunnel turn. You can probably get a decent enough block coming off of turn 2 into turn 3 to be able to make it work. I haven't seen the draft be effective enough coming off of turn 3 to say you want to set yourself up for a shoot-off off of the line.
Mark Cohn back in 6th position, 1 here in Season 5. He's a driver to watch as potentially being able to work to the front, but outside of that, with Jim Herrick's issue, with Lionel Callisto not racing, it means that we'll get a new race winner at Pocono if Cohn's unable to convert. We do have a new race lap record, by the way. Dustin Wardlow previously held that with a 48.008, a speed of about 187.467. It's 469, excuse me. That was last year, so weather conditions changing slightly. We're a little bit faster this year compared to last year.
Yeah, we are. I think that's probably to do a little bit with the setup here. Remember, each and every year we change the setups in these cars, and that is just a testament here to the changing nature of the simulator. As things go along, you'll get tire changes, whether they go onto the new tire model. You'll get setups in the way that the springs actually respond as iRacing continues to try to make all cars across the surface more realistic. And so as a result, some of the old sets won't actually work. And so you've got to update no matter what.
Final chance to be Mystic DJ. 4 laps to go. Who comes out on top?
At this point, I have 2 picks. Campbell has been the most aggressive in the last 10 laps when we ran under green, and he really, really impressed me. I think Campbell's the easy option here to be able to stay out into the lead. My heart says Drew White. I want this story. I want to see Drew White on the top of the podium.
Drew White in what would be his fourth Lionheart Retro Series start. 6 cautions so far builds us to a 4-lap run to the end. It's Sean Campbell that leads us to the green in the Next Level Racing Pocono 250 presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Great start from the WMP racing car as he jinks back and forth as they dive into 14 degrees of banking. Almost 3 wide for third position, and the story comes to an end for Drew White. Up and over and on his lid, the caution flies. Is the race over like that?
And Drew, I am so sorry. That is the commentator's curse if I have ever seen it. And Arjuna, I think this was a similar incident to what we saw coming down into turn 1 a little bit earlier. I think he lost this on his own because he just got put up too high and wasn't sure how the car was going to respond. Yeah, the rear end just broke away on him.
So this actually seems quite interesting because he actually looks like he's going back and forth a little bit, and so when you're pendulum, putting the car in a sort of pendulum effect, I was trying to say that a slightly different way, in a way that wasn't proper English, and that's why I was struggling to say it. But when the car is slip and sliding, that's when it's on the edge of the adhesion, and that's why it's so much easier to spin. And so unfortunately for Drew White, fairy tale day comes to an end. We haven't picked up the pace car yet. I think this race is over.
I think it is as well. 3 to go. Pick up the pace car here at this point, and they're going to come across the line with 2 to go. Yeah, I think this is day done and dusted, and I think Campbell's done it.
So our championship leader is about to extend his championship advantage, and in his 10th Lionheart Retro Series start, it's win number 5, potentially, for the WMP racing driver. It's a scary proposition when you get a driver in this sort of form. And you know what it reminds me of, DJ? 2021 and Sage Karam domination to start the year off.
You read my mind, and I'll tell you, Sage even tried to make things hard for himself that season. There were a couple of times that he did not qualify. I remember very vividly running with Sage at Phillip Island and seeing a car come up to my inside, going down into the left-hander of Doohan and trying to hold it out, and then realizing it was Sage Karam and going, I'm not going to beat this, and just letting him go by.
Sage Karam, 38 career starts in this Lionheart Retro Series, 18 career wins. So, not a bad record. I did note on social media, now this is where I actually have to go back and look, because it was one of those things where I was just endlessly scrolling on one of the Bird apps, and I saw the throwback livery that Sage is running this weekend in the, I think, NASCAR Xfinity Series. He actually got to go over to the RCR Museum to go check out the original car of which he's throwing back, got to sit behind the cockpit of the actual Richard Childress racing car that Richard Childress drove. That seems like a really cool way to head off to Darlington.
That's a pretty special way to do it. You gotta love that there for Sage, and always love to be able to see any of those opportunities to be able to bask in racing history.
The best part is as well, if you're going to do a throwback, you can't just do the paint scheme. You've got to do the suit. You've got to go all in.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And they did a good job on that. Lights are still on, by the way, so as we get ready to wrap around to see the white flag, it's going to be not to restart the race, it's to get a processional lap that will see Sean Campbell, Michael O'Brien, and then Matt Taylor finish 1, 2, and 3.
All right. I hate to see this end at this point in the running. I mean, Arjuna, we were set up for such a fantastic race to see this close, and it's a little bit of an anticlimax to have this ending under yellow. No,
for sure. And again, first time in 7 years that we will finish under caution at Pocono, which is a testament to how the drivers over the previous 6 years have been able to manage what is a tricky car, even in the best of conditions. High speeds, bumpy racetrack, and to be able to survive. We'll end with 7 cautions as well, so a bit of a stop-and-start day. And after 3 back-to-back races, DJ, let's not forget that we get a week off before the drivers will return on May the 25th on the streets of Long Beach, which is a race that I would have been very much looking forward to call, but like we mentioned earlier, both you and myself will be a little bit distracted, potentially.
We'll potentially be a little bit distracted. We'll see what the mobile setup is like for DJ Clark Productions, and we'll see if I can run everything off of my laptop to be able to get that to go. So hopefully I will be there with you for Long Beach.
What you should do is you should just go to IMS, say, guys, I need to use your media center once again. You know me, I did the PA for the Indy 8 hours. Just see if that will work.
Just see if on the day before Fast Friday they'll let me log on into the media center. Well, I'll see if I can pull it off.
I mean, there's no on-track action Thursday evening.
Excuse me, Carb Day, not Fast Friday. Who am I?
Yes. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. But,
Carb Day's a great day, by the way.
Oh, Carb Day's incredible.
Carb Night is better, in my opinion. Have you been?
Carb Night, no, because Carb Night is the night that I have all of my friends coming into town and we all congregate together. And then we head on down to modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah the next morning.
Highly recommend that maybe you change that for 1 year. You get both the Road to Indy series, which is pretty interesting, and then you get Silver Crowns as well. I don't need to say any more.
Yeah, especially now that they have the new Silver Crowns.
Yes. Well, it was looking like it was going to be really fun all the way to the very end. Unfortunately, we finish under caution for the first time in 7 years here in the Pocono Mountains. It's Sean Campbell that grabs win number 5 in his Lionheart Retro Series career. He wins the Next Level Racing Pocono 250, presented by Gomez Sim Industries. Slightly anticlimactic, yes. Some of our championship contenders taking some good points out of this race. But ultimately, the first Triple Crown of the year goes the way of the WMP Racing number 26. Next time we roll out for a Triple Crown, it's in Speedway, Indiana on June the 29th. We'll see who comes out on top in that Triple Crown race.
We'll have to see, and that's the big one. That's the one that everybody wants to be winning at that point. But a massive congratulations out here today for Sean Campbell.
Oh, man.
Drove his way through the field. And
apparently Chris Reagan, with technical issues on the very final lap of the race, will finish down in 21st position. He was in 10th spot, heading on to the final lap of the race. Heartbreaking stuff, but sometimes that is unfortunately the way that the racing gods, the iRacing gods, decide to go. Here's a look at your arena race results. Again, finishing under caution, so margins irrelevant. Sean Campbell on top, though, for the 5th time in his career. And Michael O'Brien and Matt Taylor for Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, not just keeping themselves in that championship hunt, but more importantly, starting to break away in the HyperX team standings. Mike Razmas, the defending champion, 4th for Nezumi Graphics LC, with Ricky Hardin in the unacceptable racing number 7 across the line to complete the top 5. All of those drivers gained positions. Only Michael O'Brien was not double-digit gains on the day. Mark Cohn finishes 6th in front of David Sirra, while David Rodriguez, Matt Wagner, and then Samuel Fontaine round out your top 10. Down in 11th spot, it's Christopher Hill, while Cristobal Valenzuela finishes in 12th. Behind him, Alex Guillon, Andrew Wood, and then Hugo Gallas through the top 15, with Mike Rigney, Jeff Hysong, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and then Christopher and Phil Kraus finishing through your top 20. Phil Kraus able to recover at least a finish on the leading lap. Behind, on 1 lap down, Chris Reagan with his internet issues on that final lap. Sam Ryman 2 laps down after starting in pit lane, while Drew White, such a promising run, comes to an end, 23rd for him. Jim Herrick, 24th, our defending race winner, with Tyler Graff involved in an incident between the two of them. Dan Zagers, 26th, with Richie Hearn, Chris Fowler, Joe Hassett, and then Craig Forsyth through the top 30. Rodrigo Munoz, Paul Jenkins, Jordan Zaldo, Luke Daniels, and then Gabe Wood and Ken Hacker make up our used car lot as we run our way down through our arena race results. Fastest lap went the way of Ricky Hardin on lap number 30 at 47.917, a new track record under racing conditions for us here in the Lionheart Retro Series. With that, we make our way over to the Next Level Racing post-race show. It's time to talk through all the analysis, to talk to the drivers about what was an intriguing race at the start, that then slightly slowed down to be a little bit more rough and tumble toward the end. We'll make our way to HyperX Victory Lane for, once again, a catch-up with Sean Campbell in that WMP Racing number 26 machine. Sean, another victory, this time under caution. What was it like for you with a loose car, because it sounds like you did not take tires and almost blew the right front at the very end?
Terrifying, in a word. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to get that loose, but it was really fast. I noticed on the restart, I was able to go around the outside of just about everyone. That first restart that we had under the big yellow, like with the pit cycle, I mean.
What was the tire percentage down to at the end? I gotta ask.
27.
27's not that bad. You still had a little bit of leeway there.
Yeah, but like, I think like the general idea with this car is the lower the wear is, the more rotation there is.
One thing that I talked about at the start, Sean, was that qualifying didn't really matter here, and you proved it coming from 25th position forward. What was it like working your way through those first runs where we got some decently long green flag periods where you still were one of those cars ducking and diving forward?
It was nice, you know, getting to bob and weave through the, not traffic, but just the cars, because everybody's quick. And, I mean, I guess that's what did my front tire in, right?
Well,
getting stuck behind everybody. Not stuck behind, just behind everybody.
Apparently it worked. Congratulations on win number 5 in the Lionheart Retro Series, Sean. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time on the streets of Long Beach.
All right.
Sean Campbell from HyperX Victory Lane. We make our way down to Michael O'Brien, who's standing by with DJ Clark.
Michael, a good run there out for you. You were kind of up in the hunt this entire race long. You've got to be feeling a little bit disappointed, though, to not have that under green.
Yeah, it would have been nice to race out. I'm not... Sean seemed like he was barely hanging on, so probably could have taken it to me, right? But no, I'm very happy with P2 for a race that was pretty chaotic at the end there.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, talk to me a little bit. We just heard Sean talking about how sketchy that car got. Were you focused a little bit more on tire wear over the course of the run? What was your secret to kind of keeping this car underneath you?
Yeah, as a team, we were sort of paying attention to the way the things the tires were doing, and we had a good strategy. Matt went off strategy a bit, but no, it was it was a little bit of saving, but for the most part it was just drive and take the tires at the right time, and that's that.
Well, as we look ahead, we've got one of the trickiest tracks to be able to handle next time out in the form of Long Beach. How do you feel about that, and what kind of preparations are you going to need to do to make sure you're able to pilot this Lotus 79 around it?
I absolutely love Long Beach in this car, so I'm looking forward to that. I almost got my first win there against Morgan a couple of years ago, so no, I'm really looking forward to that one.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on a second-place run, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, DJ.
And from Michael O'Brien, we'll make our way over to his Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks teammate of Matt Taylor. Matt, another fun race here at Pocono. You were another driver that went on the no-tire strategy, we believe. What was your right front tire down to at the end of the 100 laps?
So I was at 43, so I wasn't anywhere near as bad as Sean was, but I don't know how big a difference that made. That was anything in clean air was just terrifying.
You did look a little bit looser than Sean, is what I was going to ask. What was the thinking behind not taking the tires? Were you under the impression it wasn't going to be such a slippery ride at the end?
No, I'd actually prepped the strategy coming into the race in case I got buried a little bit, and that's kind of what happened once I was kind of stuck in a second pack. I knew if it went green, really my only chance to catch up or drag some people up with me was going to be able to take those no tires, and so I really tried to protect the fronts through the first stint, and then particularly through the second stint, so it wouldn't be completely gone at the end. And you kind of had to make the decision if you were going to take the tires on lap 30. So once I did, it's kind of just, okay, this is the strategy you've committed to, don't crash it.
I like the way that you kind of describe that. Now, it's your third year that you're involved in this championship fight, and I feel like every year it's getting tougher and tougher and more competitive at the very front. What are you feeling like with now 4 rounds in the books and the first Triple Crown in the books?
It's insane. I mean, Sean Campbell is an alien of aliens, if you can call him that. And then obviously you've got Phil Krause coming in and Marius, and there is several of my teammates, Rasmus and O'Brien, and there's just so many guys. I feel like that with the way this car races, we're all within a couple tenths here and there, and with the draft and that, we're just all right on top of each other, and so it's capitalizing when you can. Like, Sean is going to be really tough to beat on a road course, so if you could get points on him at an oval, that didn't happen tonight, that makes that road a lot harder, but it's been a good start. Just kind of keep churning away and getting good finishes and see how it plays out.
I've suggested success ballast for Sean Campbell. We'll make him drive with one hand. Maybe we'll do that for Long Beach. Congratulations on another podium, Matt. We'll see you in 2 weeks over at Long Beach.
Appreciate it.
Matt Taylor rounds out our podium interviews. Always great to be able to get a few moments with the drivers as we wrap things up here. Triple Crown #1 done and dusted. Sean Campbell grabs himself what is a very important victory in terms of momentum. Already the championship leader. And heading over to Long Beach, a track where rhythm is so crucial. A track where it's hard to imagine that Sean Campbell is not going to be strong. 5 rounds into the season, DJ, Sean Campbell's already looking like Sage Karam back in 2021.
Yeah, very, very much so. Campbell has clearly set himself up as the driver to beat, and as we head into Long Beach, where it is all about precision, it is all about getting things right and keeping that rhythm up, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody who wouldn't call Campbell the favorite going into that round.
And I think the more important thing as well is the fact that Sage Karam had such a great start to the season in 2021. Then things started to go wrong for him, and then we saw him withdraw from the championship. For Sean Campbell, when he hits that first hurdle, hopefully not on the streets of Long Beach, well, how is he going to respond? How will he bounce back? Let's look at our next level racing schedule. Remind you of what we've got left in front of us into this first half of the campaign. A week off, yes. Long Beach, Motegi back-to-back, and then over to the Indianapolis road course before our second Triple Crown, the Indianapolis 250. Then just Fuji, Iowa, and Phoenix before we'll head into the back half of the campaign. Just one Triple Crown in that second half, DJ, but it's where, at least in my opinion, to go back to throwback weekend, Mosport and Milwaukee. I think I've come down to those two.
Yeah, I could agree with that as well. And you know what? Let's make it both here. Let's change things up a little bit. We are technically racing a Formula One car. You want to run some Formula One liveries? You want to run some road course liveries? Let's run them at CTMP. Let's run them at Mosport. You want to run some classic IndyCar oval liveries at a race that cannot be mentioned? Run them at Milwaukee.
I like this plan, and so I think we're going to go with it. DJ, out of this first Triple Crown, though, 4 rounds in, we said it last week, so many different challenges for this Lotus 79. Next up, we go to the streets of Long Beach. We haven't had a street course just yet. Strategy comes out important there. It's also where Watkins Glen we saw a caution. Don't count that out at Long Beach as well to disrupt the flow and change the strategy just like we saw here today.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see a track blockage coming down at some point around Long Beach. I know I've certainly done plenty of races where that has been the case, so I think it's going to be a question mark. It's going to be a just about anything can happen kind of race, and that can mean only one thing for us up here in the commentary booth, and for you fans out there, you got to tune in because it's going to be interesting to watch.
So May 25th, join us same time and same place, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific for all of the coverage. Before we say goodbye, it's time to thank those that make it possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. To learn more, visit thebuttkicker.com. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your BMW M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision-built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. From simple logos to full branding for your company, Virtual designs deliveries raced by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Graphics Esports is your place to learn more. And it's not just them, but so many more that make this possible. To learn about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, or about the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, head on over to lionheartracingseries.com or visit them on social media to stay up to date with all the news from the virtual paddock. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time for what's going to be a thrilling race on the streets of Long Beach. Triple Crown #1 in the book, though, and it's your championship leader that continues to show that he is a problem to be dealt with. Sean Campbell on top here, rolling out of the Pocono Mountains as we make our way over to the west coast of the USA. For everyone behind the scenes at RaceSpotTV, for DJ Clark, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. For now, so long and goodbye.